Welcome back to episode 9 of Quarantine Cast here on Beyond the Brick. I'm Joshua Hinlin, and today our guest is Dave Pickett from Brick 101. Thank you so much to Dave for joining us on this stream. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Brian Saviano, Bricks O'Brien, where you can find him online and all of his great gaming streams, which I'm sure we'll get into some talk about gaming later in the stream, because that's also something that Dave has gotten a lot more involved in recent years as well. So lots of fun stuff to talk about here. But Dave, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. It's always a wonderful conversation with you whenever we can chat about YouTube and the LEGO community. So thank you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Hello, everybody in the comments, too.
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's joined us in the live stream, commenting. We'll definitely keep an eye on the chat. So if people have questions for us or for Dave throughout the stream, feel free to put them in the chat, and we will do our best to keep an eye on that and direct those questions to Dave as they come in. But I wanted to start with a recent video that you posted on your channel, Dave, about some new how to builds you're doing, and then your involvement with the Brickworld virtual show. So we've been covering Brickworld virtual as kind of Mark Larson announced everything, and they've been doing more of those. They just had, I believe it was the second one not long ago. So they're continuing to do those, and I think they've been a good success for them. So what is your involvement there, and kind of how are you trying to get involved with those shows?
Yeah, so right, obviously nobody in their right mind would want to go into a convention hall full of 5,000 people, many of whom are children, during a pandemic, right? So the model for LEGO fan conventions this year is just got to change. So that was kind of the impetus behind Brickworld Virtual. So yeah, they've been running them over Zoom. They just had their second one in May, and there's a third one coming up in June. So basically, you know, you pay a small ticket price, and they also have annual passes, and then you can go in. There's like a dozen different Zoom rooms at a time that you can enter. And like last time, they had the entire cast of LEGO Masters that you could just hang out and chat with. And then what I was doing was, so I shared a spot with everybody's favorite Kevin Hinkle. So
we aspire to his level of work someday.
Yeah, no, I mean he's great at streaming, right? Like he's been doing that with the community for at least a year, if not more, just like kind of building and chatting. So, you know, he's really good at it. So, but he was just doodling minifigures for 3 hours, and then I came in and I told my audience ahead of time if they showed up, they would get to vote on what I did, because that historically is how they've, hey, James, thanks for a super chat.
Oh, that's right. Shout out, $1.99. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, my fans have always kind of told me what to do, usually through YouTube comments, but I can't have YouTube comments anymore on most of my content. Right? Any LEGO content that I produce is basically for kids, and kids content on YouTube can't have comments. So like that whole model of my business is been decimated. I already shifted away from it before that happened, so I'm okay. But if I'm going to re-engage, like I literally can't even have people on YouTube tell me what to do for LEGO, you know, if I'm sticking within the letter of what YouTube says I should do. But Brickworld Virtual, right? Like, you know, the parents are paying, right? Like everybody knows what's happening. And so it's, you know, okay from COPPA standpoint. And so, yeah, I had people vote on what I should build, which is, you know, so I pitted my two most fervent fan bases against each other. So within the history of Brick 101, it started out as this show called The Nightly News at 9, which was an animated web series I did for a few years. And where it kind of ended is that I just became the person who made stuff using Five Nights at Freddy's and Lego. That was just like the niche that was the most profitable. So I was like, those are the two edges of my fan base that are always asking me, like, when's the next Nightly News at 9 or Five Nights at Freddy's? So I was like, all right, it's going to be one of those two. And surprisingly, like the Nightly News at 9 fans were the ones who showed up. And it was only like 5 people who showed up at the beginning of the stream, maybe 6, because it was like 4 votes for Nightly News at 9 to 2 for Five Nights at Freddy's, and more people came throughout, but like those were the people who showed up at the beginning, so those were the true fans, so they got to choose, right? Like it was pretty awesome to see that. And like one person literally had built the entire set from Nightly News at 9 and had all of the characters. And so I did a script reading because, it's a scripted show, and Nightly News at 9 Chapter 3, I wrote a script for 6 years ago that's just been sitting on my computer because I don't have any intention of ever producing it in its format. But I was like, I could do a dramatic script reading. And that's what they wanted, so I did it. But then, like, my Uber fan was literally moving the characters along on his screen while I did it. So that's a pretty cool thing to happen, right? Like, have fans show up for a live table read of an unproduced episode. That's pretty cool.
Right, and that's, I'm sure, great for you as well, because you get to see how like passionate the fans are and see that people still care about so much of these things that maybe you haven't even, like you said, it was what, 6 years ago or something since you did anything with that, so people still care that much about it.
Yeah, and and then so that was the first hour, and then I was answering questions, and then I did a live build using Studio. So, which is a software I'd never used before, because I was on Lego Digital Designer for a long time, but now it doesn't work on the latest version of Mac OS because Catalina is terrible. I just can't emphasize that enough as somebody who works in games and software now, how like much that upgrade has just ruined my ability to use important software. Anyway, so I couldn't do Lego Digital Designer, so I just did something in Studio, didn't know what I was doing, but people seem to enjoy it. So yeah, I built a giant, I'll give you the link in the chat here, a giant version of the old school Lego Dragon, just the head, and it's just like a rough block out that I did, because again, like building a model from scratch takes lots of time, right? If it's a detailed model. This is, I think, something that Brick and Nick deals with, because he does builds on Twitch, right? And so his builds are always pretty small and contained. I was like, well, I don't want to build something small. I want to build something enormous. So let me try and like quickly build this, or at least show kids, here's how my process works, right? Like, I'm looking at this picture, I've decided on a scale, let me do some rough outlines. And like, that's literally how I would start building a model. So it's really, it's kind of meta, instead of being how to build, where I just show step-by-step, here's pieces that you put together to build a finished model that I've polished. This is how to build, right? It's like literally, here's how you design something from scratch, and you're there with me, and like, people were typing in the chat like, oh, why don't you use this piece, or stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. And, like, people enjoyed it and were giving me lots of comments and positive feedback. And I was like, this doesn't look that good, y'all, but thank you for being impressed. So yeah, it was just kind of fun. And so yeah, that's going to be like how I do this in the future, right? Like, the business model that I used to produce how to build videos on YouTube is gone. It's not coming back. But like, I can still connect with my audience and let them guide me and make cool things out of Lego, right? Like, that's a skill set I've honed over years. It's just the delivery mechanism has to shift. So I kind of saw the Brick World Virtual because, they're doing another one in June, and then I think the next one isn't until like October or December. There's like 2 more later this year, but they're a little further out. But anyway, just like, okay, yeah, I can commit to like 4 streams in 2020, right? That's like a pretty low commitment bar for how to build, but it's still more than I did last year, right? Like, And anyone who's been a Brick 101 fan for a long time has gone through multiple hiatuses of content. So, this is nothing new for like the long-term, like diehard fans.
That's just what you sign up for as a Brick 101 fan. There's going to be an ebb and flow there of content.
Like, I'm only 35. I'm not George R.R. Martin. You don't need to worry about me dying next year before I complete my life's work. Like, I'm around. I've got a few decades.
That's
right. Oh my God. Kevin Hinkle, the OG Fallen Tomato days.
Oh, Fallen Tomato. Look at that. How many years ago was that?
So yeah, that started Nightly News at 9 started 2009. Fallen Tomato, I want to say, was 2006.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was or 2007. It was like early YouTube days. Because it was as I was graduating college and YouTube. Oh, Rogue Runner. This was totally unplanned. This is just the t-shirt I've been wearing for days because I don't change my clothes very often in quarantine.
No one needs to. It's just a happy coincidence, as they say.
Yeah. So
this is day 3 for that shirt for Dave. And
this is not like the April Fool's prank where Brothers Brick and Brick 101 are Beyond the Brick merged. All the bricks are just going to merge at some point.
Yes, and where people are going to give up on keeping them straight, and it's just going to become one big brick. And
then the big conglomerate YouTube channel will just be called The Block, and you're like, oh, it's just giant block.
Oh no, like not YouTube conglomerate. I want Lego to buy us all out.
That's fine. I'll be on company payroll. It's all good.
Yeah, no, Lego. If you're watching this, Brick 101 is available to purchase.
Let's just say Dave's on the market.
Him as a person, he's on the market. Go and just buy him.
So,
So what you mentioned, I think Kevin brought up there the Fallen Tomato and that stuff. And that I do want to mention, you posted, I think it was at the end of January this year, a fantastic talk you did at a meetup of it's like YouTube creators in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this talk is really fantastic. It's like an hour and a half long where you go into a lot of detail over the history of the YouTube channel and the various types of content you've created over the years. So a lot of that stuff we won't have time to get into today, but if people want to learn more, you can see some of the video here.
That's also when I had my full-on beard. I'm now in the awkward phase between no beard and good beard. I was rocking the beard.
The phases of Dave's beard as well.
I'm always in that awkward state. So I know what it feels like.
Yeah, no, it's only in the last year that I've been able to grow a beard that is that full. There always used to be lots of patchy parts, and so I'd get to this length and then be like, this isn't working, and shave it off. So I'm super proud of. I feel like a real adult now, that, and going to the chiropractor. I'm like, yeah, I'm middle-aged.
You're just embracing it fully.
Oh yeah.
But this talk is fantastic. So people want to learn more, but especially about kind of those early days, like we were talking about Fallen Tomato and that stuff. There's a lot of good content there that you've from this video. And I know you've also written about a lot of these things in various places.
Yeah. So. And y'all uploaded the video that I did at Bricks by the Bay, which was a very similar topic. But yeah, it was my first version of this talk, which, I've honed over the years to be even more expansive. So yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's always fascinating hearing your insights into all these things. We'll definitely get into some more of that later. But I know, so you talked about kind of Brick World Virtual and how you were doing kind of how to build type stuff for that. So how did that feel for you? Because I know you've taken a break from the YouTube channel for a while. You haven't been uploading a lot of Lego content. So does it feel good for you to be kind of getting back into that, of creating that type of content that you used to do a lot more often on the channel?
Oh yeah, it was just nice to build with Lego, right? Even virtually, even digitally. I have not been building Lego a lot. And I know that must be crazy for y'all to think about, going, a week without touching Lego, or a month, or multiple months. but you know, when it becomes your day job, right, it's everywhere. But yeah, I burned out. You know, I used that phrase very intentionally. I burned out of YouTube and Lego, because for me, the two things were deeply intertwined. And yeah, it was back in 2018 when my YouTube business model was first impacted by changes on YouTube. And I realized like the level that I had grown the business to was no longer sustainable, because at that point it was me and a full-time employee. We had an office, and that, you know, we had a healthcare plan, and that was awesome. But it was also, right, every month I was just paying all the bills, right? It's not like I had surplus money, and that was dependent on me getting paid a certain ad rate from YouTube. And when that disappeared, which actually happened like late 2017, like I just no longer could do it. And like having to like fire an employee and then basically fire myself from a job that I had spent 10 years building towards, and like was like all of my future plans during that whole time. It's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So yeah, so I just needed some time away from it, because it was like interacting with YouTube or Lego, either one, just like brought all of that stuff back. So it was like, it was a really hard time. And so like I went and got a day job for a while, and you know, it's been a couple of years now, and like I did a lot of intentional work with specifically a YouTube burnout coach, right? And there's a video with him on my channel where I had him out to my Chicago Creators thing. So like I worked with him on almost a weekly basis, just talking about like who I was as a creative person, like why I started doing YouTube in the first place, what I was looking for, and like starting to like understand and process like everything that I felt about what happened on YouTube with Lego, and then like starting to like reconnect to like what the core of what I wanted to do on YouTube was, and figure out like how can I get that in my life if not from YouTube and Lego, which is kind of what led me going back to grad school, where I'm studying game design, which has just been an amazing creative outlet that like has none of the pressures or financial strain that my Lego YouTube channel had associated with it. It has like a different set of pressures and stresses, but it's good, and it's been like a great place for me to grow. And now that I've been doing that, like, oh, right, like, yeah, I feel comfortable getting back into Lego because I'm doing it in a very thoughtful, measured way. And like, I still like building with Lego. I mean, like, I can't, that's like in my DNA basically at this point. Like I have altered my DNA. I built with Lego so much. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're not like a YouTube creator until you felt burnout at least once. At least once. Like if you're doing it seriously and you're so passionate about what you're doing, I feel like you throw yourself to the fire because you love it so much and you just want to keep going and going and going. And then you stand there and you're like, what do I do? And it just all like, it all hits at once. And that's the burnout. And I mean, I've been there for sure. Not to the same extent as you, but I mean, you drive yourself to do so much in such a little time, and you want to keep things going because things are going well. And you know, you got to make time for yourself as best you can, and friends and family and your own sanity. Go out for a walk every once in a while. It's not easy.
What are some things, Dave, that you kind of, I know you said you worked with the coach. And so what are some things you kind of learned about yourself? And then maybe if there's anything you could share more generally about kind of creator burnout, that if anyone's watching this and maybe feeling some similar things that you would have felt, that are kind of things you picked up on as far as tips to people to maybe avoid similar things to what happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, you know, here are the systemic pressures that creators face that lead to burnout. On the one hand, you are a creative person, right? You wouldn't be on YouTube creating content for the world for free at first, maybe later getting paid, unless you had some creative drive that, you know, you had something you wanted to share with the world because you loved it, right? That is the core of what everybody gets started on YouTube. On the other hand, right, once you get to a certain level, you are also a business. And, you know, if you're lucky, right, that business is giving you enough money that you can have a nice meal, or then pay a bill, pay your rent, pay all of your bills, right? Like as you continue to grow, right, then the performance of your content becomes more and more important. And so, and then there's the algorithm, right? So whatever curatorial algorithm the platform you're working on has, so like I know YouTube's, but I'm sure Twitch and Facebook all have their own separate ways of grading and showing content. But basically the general rule is the more consistent and niche you are, the more your content will reach an audience and perform well, because you'll teach the algorithm, right? Like I produce this type of content, this group of people likes it, find more people who are like that and send them to my content, right? However, you know, people's interests change over time. Your interests change over time. So you might want to do other content, but then it won't perform well, which means your bills don't get paid. Or you might keep doing the same thing, but your audience might move on. And then you have to start a new content type, but now you're starting from scratch again almost, even though you have a subscriber base, right? So it's like you're constantly having to reinvent yourself while also sticking to what works. And it's like an impossible game. This is not like being a creator is not a game you can win. It is just, it's like an old school arcade game where it's just like you can go for a while until you inevitably die and maybe you got a high score.
That's exactly what it feels like to an extent, because you want to keep going, and you want to keep your own interest in what you're doing. And if you don't have that interest in what you're doing anymore, then that shows in the content, and then you unintentionally take it out on maybe what you're doing, or if you have a live audience, on them or on yourself in other ways. And it has seemed like that exactly what you're describing after a while. So that's like what I'm struggling with. Like, all right, I want to do like this other thing, but it doesn't fit with the cohesiveness of what I'm doing here. So do I make a new platform for that, or do I just do it anyways? And trying to find that balance without messing everything up is like, is that really possible? You know, like, and you're just shaking your head like, yeah.
No, like this is, I started a whole new channel at the height of my burnout. And like, as the YouTube business model was collapsing, it's like, oh, cool, I'll do something totally different, where it's like deep analysis of pop culture from like, you know, a nerdy perspective, and I'll have it be Patreon funded, and like that'll be my new creative outlet. And like I had my employee work on this beautifully edited video essay, but it took us like a month to produce one piece of content, and I didn't have an audience for that, right? I had 500,000 subscribers or something at that point, and I got like maybe 5,000 people to move over, and that's huge if you're starting from zero, but it's nothing compared to what I was already doing. And I also then was splitting my efforts, so I wasn't really feeding Brick 101 at a time when it was in crisis, because like I did not have the creative energy to do that anymore. Like my creativity needed something different, but that did not serve the main engine of the business. And it's like, what do you do?
So what I've seen some people do is, instead of trying to find that other creative outlet, and I don't know if I agree with it, and I'd like to know how you feel about it, instead of like trying to find that creative outlet, you just don't, and you just suck it up and keep going and trying to do the best that you can with what you already have. And some people I've seen who are creators like that treat it even more so like a business. Like, all right, clock in, clock out. I'm going to play this game and the entire way through for, 4 hours today and just do it no matter what the performance is. And like, I know of a creator who plays video games all the time. He wants to do like a board game sort of type of content, but that doesn't fit with what he's doing. And I haven't seen that person do that for so long because it just won't fit with the algorithm and everything else. So it's like, do you just forfeit what you want to do for the sake of keeping things afloat, or take that risk creatively to do what you want to do as a creator? Would you go back and change that maybe?
So that's a complicated question.
Yeah.
So the answer is just yes.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's right. There's not like an easy answer here. So like if you look at creators who have dealt with this, right? You could think about like, was it Sky Does Minecraft, who is just like, I'm done with Minecraft, but I'm going to use this channel for other people who do Minecraft, and like he had made
name Minecraft is in the name. It's Sky Does Minecraft,
right? Yeah. And it's like, he had probably made enough money that he was fine, right?
Yeah, he
like
care at that point.
Right. If you're Ninja on Twitch and you have toys at Target, you're probably going to be okay, right? Yeah. Even if you totally pivot and start something new. Yeah. So like when I was doing Brick 101 as my job, I tried to work 40 hours a week only on Brick 101. Like that was a thing I tried to do as a mental health work balance thing for myself. I'm like, if I am my own boss and I cannot just like be in the office a consistent amount of time, like my brain is going to be thinking about it wherever I am. I can't stop that, but at least like be in physically the workspace like a normal amount of time, with occasional times that I'd go over, but not be like working myself. But then I was like, okay, what do I do for a hobby now? Because my hobby used to be YouTube and now it's my job. And so therefore I call it, a jobby. So I was like, I guess I need a new hobby. So I got into puppets for a while, like building puppets, and like I was doing workshops. I was like, maybe this is my new thing, right? Like I was just trying to find like a creative outlet that I wasn't monetizing and just let it be a creative outlet. Just so like I had that. And then like, it wasn't like I had to force everything into, well, this needs to be a YouTube video because that's what I make, right? Because it's like, I don't know, like if you have a normal job and then you're doing something for fun, right? You're not trying to always merge everything into one consistent brand. So just like letting yourself be a human with varied interests. I don't know.
No, I think there's a lot to that. And I think going back to like what Brian was saying about how do you balance that sort of like creativity versus the things that like, people will want to see and that like make the money for the channel, from like our perspective at Beyond the Brick, we kind of do some of both. So we have the videos that we make that we know will be popular. And there are things like Star Wars and Minecraft, and the genre of like mocks that we cover that we know people will like to see. But then there are other mocks that we cover that we're almost 99% sure probably won't be popular, but there's something we're interested, or they're just a really cool build that we feel people should still see, even if it doesn't get a ton of views. So I think even within one channel, you can kind of balance out that creative side and doing your own kind of like passion projects along with the type of more popular content that maybe you're interested in, but it just isn't, the main, what you want to do all the time or something. So things like covering Lego Minecraft builds, like I've never played Minecraft. I don't really know a lot about it, but I do know that a whole lot of people in the world really love it. Dave, I know you can identify with that, as Minecraft was a lot of popular content for you over the years on your channel. So we still cover if somebody has like a really big Lego Minecraft layout, because we know people will want to watch that and they'll enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's almost exactly the relationship I had with Five Nights at Freddy's. It's not a video game I've played very much. I played maybe like 5 minutes, got scared and stopped playing. But I have produced, dozens of hours of content about it on YouTube. So like I'm super well read on the Five Nights at Freddy's Wikipedia so that I can correctly identify all the characters and make sure that like my models are super accurate. But it's, it was like it was totally a strategic business decision, not driven by my passion, right? But I was still building things out of Lego, so that was cool. So, but then it just became like, okay, what can I do and how can I put Five Nights at Freddy's in this, even if there's no reason for Five Nights at Freddy's to be in this? So I got like a fan-made, beautiful mock that was a computer desk. This was from when Mock Nation existed for like 2 years, if you remember that site.
Yeah.
And it was like a beautiful computer desk and a chair. And I was like, I want this. My husband wants it. Like, we just want this. And it's Lego. So I should probably do a review, but none of the kids are going to be into this. So just for like 1 minute of that video, I took a Five Nights at Freddy's build I had put it in the chair. And then that was my screenshot for the video, was the Five Nights at Freddy's character in the chair, even though that was basically unrelated. I'm like, this is wow, great great back end work by
John is always a consummate professional, keeping everything running behind the scenes.
Yeah, so yeah, I just plopped Five Nights at Freddy's down in there, and all of a sudden, oh, that's interesting. So this was when I had an employee, because I was like, those aren't my hands. But that was my employee's hand. So they would do the speed builds because they could literally follow instructions. And their hands looked enough like mine that nobody really noticed. And then I would just come in and review it, and then they would edit it and upload it and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but yeah, just trying to and that was another thing, like having an employee, any parts of the YouTube process that I didn't personally enjoy, like I just don't like editing. Like I'm a good editor, I'm a decent editor, but it's not my passion. And there's so many other parts of the process that are important that I could easily just be like, edit these videos. And, in the last, part of my YouTube channel, when I was having employees, which is 2017 to 18, or starting in 2016, that period, you can see the editing gets a lot better. Like they're putting in sound effects and quick cuts. And I'm just like, damn, like you actually put effort into this. I just hate listening to myself talk all the time. Yeah, I think, trying to find whether that's collaborators, I think, y'all have a great model here in that it's always been at least 2 people. And, that's been something that's been shown across the creator ecosystem, that if you are in it with at least a partner, if not a small group, that often works out really well, because then each of you can have a specialty and focus on, and not have to do everything. And yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that I think, those are ways you can mitigate burnout, and just the constant overwork is collaboration and stuff like that.
That's a really good point. Yeah, from the very beginning, it's been, John and I have handled the channel together. He's been able to do the video and editing stuff. I can host the videos and do whatever else, and we've always been able to split up the various duties. And I can't imagine, yeah, if either of us had ever tried to do this on our own, it would not have ended well. And I think we would have had a lot more of those issues with burnout and things like that. So definitely bringing other people on board, which I think is interesting. I wanted to ask you, what was having an employee like for you? Because that's not something, you've got to really have a good sized channel, something you've built up over a lot of years to reach the point where you can hire someone else. So what was that process like for you, and kind of the experience of having someone else, that is not, was not involved with the beginning of the channel that you brought in to help out?
Yeah, so I benefited a lot from having had a career before my YouTube channel became my full-time job. And in that career, I hired and trained employees. So I had a lot of experience figuring out, what types of tasks are good for me not to do and somebody else to do. because I literally went from being a student employee at a place to becoming the manager of the student employees. But because I had that perspective, I was able to be like, okay, here's what the student perspective is and what they need to think about, and here's how we can make tasks well suited for them and stuff like that. So I had like 10 years of managerial experience before I hired my own employee for my own business. But even then, like it's a struggle to manage an employee, right? It's a relationship that you don't get a lot of practice in school, right? If there are group projects, it's not like there's like a power dynamic because everybody's a peer usually. So just like how to communicate and like set expectations and hold people accountable while also like not being a micromanaging jerk. It's a really hard balance to strike, and most people are bad at it. Just like most people are bad managers. I'm sorry, world, but y'all are bad managers. So I benefited from like having done a lot of that in a job where somebody was paying me and I had a stable paycheck. And so I could make mistakes and learn and grow from other managers, from myself. So by the time I was ready to hire an employee, like I had written job descriptions before, I had posted jobs, I had done interviews. So all of that stuff was pretty straightforward for me. More, it was like getting to the point where cognitively and like mathematically, I was like, oh, it makes sense to have an employee. And I only got to that by working with a business mentor. So I used a service called SCORE, SCORE. It's the Service Corps of Retired Executives. So it's literally a bunch of retired people who want to help people with small businesses run their businesses better. And so I was working with a business mentor, and he's like, "What's your business plan?" I was like, "What's a business plan?" Right? So we went through that, and he didn't know much about YouTube, but that was actually super helpful because I had to explain everything to him in terms he would understand. And then he would be like, "Oh, so you're basically like an insurance salesman." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Insurance salesman. Like they sell a policy, and then they get dividends and returns on that policy as long as that person keeps that policy. So over time, they build up their content, right? And so your old content or your old insurance policies slowly pay out." So he's like, "So for you, you just need to be, the more content you can produce, like the longer term that'll grow your business, because it's all about residuals." And I was like, I guess I'm an insurance broker. I hadn't studied business, right? Like, I think that's the other thing, is that most creators don't have a background in business. Like, I didn't take business classes in college. I didn't get an MBA. Like, I don't have any of those entrepreneurial like learning skills. So I did a lot of trial and error. And it's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about teaching other creators, is because it's like, I had to learn all this stuff by myself, and it was super hard. And I went through a lot of heartache that could have been avoided if I had had a plan and any kind of like baseline. But anyway, so like talking to him, he's like, "Well, how long does it take you to create a video? What are the different parts of the process? Like, which of those could you do? And what would you be doing with the time you would free up if you were paying somebody, a low minimum wage? Like, what's the easiest part of your job for somebody else to do? And what would you have to pay somebody? And what then would you be able to grow your business to if you were free of that?" So that was like, when you think about it that way and then start to actually run numbers, then it's like, oh yeah, like if I had somebody just doing editing for me, which is the thing I dread and also slows down my production pipeline because I don't want to do it, so I put it off, right? And like, I could try to change my emotions and feelings about editing, or I could just pay somebody else to do it and not have to do it anymore, and it'll just get done. And like, I was like, okay, well, the minimum wage that everybody advocates for is like $15 an hour. Like, let me do the math on that. And I started with just a part-time employee who worked, 2 days a week. focused on editing. And then slowly, like as like that worked and like I grew more confident and like I could see like, yeah, this is a lot more stable. Like I'm able to create content more regularly. And I was like, what else can they do? And that's when I was like, well, they could do the speed builds, because that's literally following instructions of a Lego set, right? There's literally a step-by-step guide I can just hand to them and let them go building a giant set that takes 3 hours to build, right? Because that's 3 hours then I'm not spending on that, and I can spend that on business strategy or thumbnails, because that's so important. And, you know, all these other aspects of being a creator that are like deep skills that take years to master. And like to some extent I have, or I was still growing in. And, you know, all of those things like, well, they don't always have an immediate return, right? Like all the things that I needed to do to grow the business long term, I could focus on because I had somebody handling more of the day-to-day stuff. But also, you know, over time, as like I got that one employee who was part-time up to full-time, right? Then well, he never went fully full-time. He only wanted to be part-time. And so like, then we came to a point where he's like, yeah, I don't want to go full-time. I was like, oh, I want a full-time. And so we decided to part ways. And then I hired a full-time employee who was only there for like 4 months, and then I had to fire them, and that sucked. Anyway, you know, so we were able to grow together. And then like, I was able to teach him about social media and thumbnails, and like his editing style was so amazing. Like the most viewed video on my channel, or second most viewed, was basically all his invention. It's just random clips of my other videos set to weird music and weird editing effects. And it's trippy and weird and nothing I would have made on my own, but like, you know, it was something like I had the idea for, he was able to execute. And so like, you know, yeah, here we go. That's the one, the Five Nights at Freddy's roleplay video. Like I would have never made that on my own. I couldn't have. So yeah, so that was kind of like what it was like having an employee. But, you know, also there's the pressure of like, oh, I have to have something for this person to do, right? Because then like, if I don't have tasks that they can do and they're working like 8-hour days, so sometimes I'd be like, okay, we're going to make a parody video about Star Wars. Go to the movie theater and watch Star Wars. That's your job right now. Because I was like, I don't have a set to build. And it's like, I need to focus on like doing the next how to build. And that wasn't a skill that my employees brought, right? They weren't Lego builders. Later, I did outside contractors to do Lego designs for me. So Kevin Hinkle, David Pagano, Mark Larson, all contributed that. And that's where I would be basically a senior designer. And being like, giving them a brief for what I was looking for. Here's how many pieces I'm looking for. Here's the rough scale. Here's what it is. Go work and then come back to me with a Lego digital design file. And then I would give them notes in the file and they would make edits. And then often I would make the last changes myself in person as I was like getting ready for the video. But right, like I was like, there's not many people in the world who have ever really been in this position, right? Because most fan builders just build their own models, right? It's not like you tell somebody, I want you to design this Lego model from your imagination, and I'm going to give you feedback on it. Because it makes sense, right? People at the Lego company have done that. And then, you know, like people maybe in like Sean Kenny, other, you know, people who have maybe grown a business around custom models that are commissioned might have something like that, but it's a really rare thing for anybody to ever be. So that was so effing cool that at the end of like my tenure at Brick 101 full time was basically the role that I had like created for myself, because it made more sense. Like it didn't make sense for me to even be spending the time designing Lego Godzilla, because one, it was just an overwhelming task. But like Mark Larson, who worked as a model designer at a Legoland park for years, oh, he can do that in like so much faster than I could, right? So it's right. It's not even about the more you come to rely on people, you're like, wait a minute, other people are so good at stuff I'm not that good at, right? And just like welcoming that into your process is so rewarding.
And that's exactly what we found with Beyond the Brick as well. You know, you find people out in the community who are just so much better at things than you, whether it's like you mentioned with Kevin Hinkle, with designing, you know, logos or graphics. We've Brian, who does the gaming streams on the channel, and the knowledge he brings, or if it's like Boone Langston and, you know, building mocks for when we need someone to do that, whatever it is. Yeah, it's when you find people who have like talents in areas that you don't have, and then you can just give them a project and say, take this and run with it, and they're super creative, and you know it's someone you can rely on to do a good job. It makes everything so much easier, and then you can just start expanding, you know, the depth and width of the channel so much more, because you're able to bring these other people on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I can say this now, that in the later days of the channel, like, you know, I was like, how can I steal ideas from Beyond the Brick and make money off of them? Right? Like, because you have to look at the competitive space as a business. And so we went to Brickworld Chicago 2017, and I sent my employees, like, just go around and film all the cool mocks. Like, we're going to make mock videos, and make sure you get the great ball contraption, because I know those videos do really well. And I was like, we're going to come for Beyond the Brick. And like, but I was like, wait a minute, like, these guys specialize in this and like have built an audience specifically around live models. Our videos did, like, there was some Five Nights at Freddy's models I got there that did super well, but otherwise our convention videos didn't do super well. I was like, oh, right, because we haven't built an audience specifically around this niche of this type of Lego content, so I'm not even going to try to touch it. So anyway, sorry, / didn't matter, because I really couldn't come for you, so.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, yeah, like you said, you've got to look at what other people are doing and see what's popular and what people want to see, and then kind of base your content off that. Obviously, you want to avoid like 100% ripping off someone and just like totally copying their content. But no, you can definitely take inspiration from how other people are creating content, or the types of content that are popular out there, and seeing what you can do from that.
There's always like a perspective that you can give that's different from, you know, someone else. And, you know, you have an audience specifically dedicated for like Five Nights at Freddy's, and obviously, yeah, the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff is going to work a lot better than most of the other things. That's why, like, for me, you know, I could do Lego videos on my own channel, but like, I'd rather just, you know, play in the court of Beyond the Brick, and like, let me channel all the energy for Lego into there, and just then, okay, now gaming over here, and then do it that way instead of trying to build it all from scratch. It's like, you know, not.
Yeah, no, I've been putting gaming videos on my channel, and my fans are not having it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, why would they?
Right.
They shouldn't. But
that's why, like, on Thursdays when I do the gaming streams, it's only Lego games. Like, I don't think I would do like, all right, well, now, you know, Super Mario Lego is coming out, I'm gonna play Mario Odyssey. It's like, well, that doesn't, it relates, but not really. So it's like, just stick with like Lego games instead of just like gaming in general.
Is this the point where we transition into Dave's hot take on the Mario sets coming out?
I mean, we can, but you know.
My hot take is I can't wait to get them. They look so amazing.
I figured, yeah. So for people, you might
actual Lego Bowser, like literal canonical Lego Bowser, right? Yep. Like, what else is there to say?
Exactly. You got to just be happy about what you get. And, you know, what I've been saying, and I've been saying it a lot since I've been on these shows, is that, you know, Lego and Nintendo worked for 4 years together to make this come to fruition. This is probably not the only thing we're going to see of, you know, Lego and Nintendo. So you just got to be patient. You just got to wait. I know we don't want to wait for anything right now, but the world is waiting for, you know, getting out of this situation right now. So we all just got to be patient. We got to relax, you know, just be happy with what you got so far.
There you go.
I mean, like, sure, I'm sure there are plenty of adult fans who have zero interest in it. I'm like, okay, cool. Just let me and the kids play with it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It looks so fun, right? It's like, how much, I don't know, like from a play perspective, the fact that this Bluetooth enabled thing that looks like, it's like better than like the old droid developer kit that was like had some robotic aspects but wasn't really full, right? Like that's like the sweet spot for me in terms of like how Lego integrates technology into some of their builds. Like Mindstorms was too complicated for me. Like I don't have time to learn robotics. Yeah. But like I want cool interactive elements. And so the fact that I'll be able to physically design Mario levels with Lego, like literally that is all I have ever wanted in my life. Have you watched my channel? Like I did Lego video games stuff, or like created characters from video games in Lego, or I created video games from video games because it's like Lego. Like Super Mario Maker is like my dream product, and this is basically physical Super Mario Maker. So
and you're getting a physical Super Mario Maker outfit to put on Mario. So it's like it's literally perfect.
Yeah, I already have that outfit. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and Dave, what I think is cool from your perspective is you're also working on your degree in game design, right? So you also kind of have that academic perspective that you bring to this, which is actually what I love about any of your talks or anything you write is, you know, the way you like crunch the numbers with YouTube and just your very like well thought out research perspective on kind of whether it's the Lego community or like kids content on YouTube, all of those things, the way you approach that. So that's kind of a side note. I just wanted to mention that because that's what I love about chatting with you and just anything that you put out there online. I think your approach to that, I think you understand a lot of these things better than probably anyone else in the Lego community does, which I think is a real resource then to the rest of us who maybe aren't like that, like myself.
Thank you. No, I mean, I love talking about that stuff. So it's great that, you know, there is an audience who's super interested in it, specifically like my detailed analysis of the conflation of like our weird social media landscape that we all exist in as creators and consumers now, and Lego products and game products. Yeah, because that's like, yeah, if you had told me as a kid those would be like my focuses in my career, I would have been like, what? That's so cool. And I'm still like that. So
I remember watching, I think it was a replay of one of your live streams like months and months ago, and you were talking like nuts and bolts stuff, like, you know, you like talking about. And I love hearing things like that too, because I feel like not enough creators talk about it. And then I remember just seeing in the chat, everyone like, you know, when are you going to upload another Lego video? What's the and I'm like, kids, this is not the time. Do you not understand? He's talking like a professional.
Yeah. No, and you know, I kind of love it because I know that like there are parts of my audience. Okay, so my YouTube channel is 10 years old, which means kids who watched it back in the day are now teenagers, right? And probably thinking about careers in social media because that is like the #1 top career that all children aspire to now based on polls.
Yeah.
In America. So it's like, actually, like my audience who like has been with me for a long time has changed their interest. And while the people who are just coming to my channel now as kids aren't going to be interested in that stuff, the people who came a long time ago actually will be at the point where they're ready for this. And it's like, I'm growing, my audience is growing. Like, why can't my content grow? And like, I know algorithmically why YouTube doesn't want me to do that. But like, now that I don't have to rely on it for income, I'm like, I don't care about numbers. Like, I'm just going to make this content. And like, if 1,000 people watch it, like, that's still amazing, right? From like when I was a kid and I would make a video on a cassette and only the people I could physically put that cassette in a VCR in front of could watch that. So, you know, like I'm like that millennial perspective for me. I'm like, this technology is amazing, y'all. And 1,000 views is a lot. And I don't care if I don't make money. So
it's so weird how that like perspective can change. Like when you're having it be your career and it's making money and, you know, it can pay bills, you begin to have that mentality of like, all right, I want to make things that work and are going to perform relatively well. But then when everything shifts, you go back to where you were in the very beginning of like, I'm just going to make it just for the sake of making it. And whoever watches it, it's whatever. And then it somehow gets more traction than you thought. And that might take off into something else entirely different. It's weird how it works. That initial philosophy comes back around eventually, you know?
Yeah. No, and as I've been doing more gaming videos, I've had to watch myself and not like just let all of the apparatus in my brain that I built up in the Lego days like switch on and be like, okay, and now here's the 10 other videos I'm going to make. I'm like, no, Dave, you don't have to do that anymore. You can just make a video and move on with your life.
Yep.
But it's really hard because you train yourself to be a content producer and be on brand.
Yeah, you so get in that mindset, and it is very difficult to move out of that and be like, oh no, I can let myself do something else or create this other type of content or something along those lines. You don't always have to follow the exact same mold, every day. So
that kind of raises a question I have for you specifically, Joshua, because we know what Dave likes to do. What if, Beyond the Brick is all for Lego content in general, right? And a lot of your passions are shown through a lot of the mocks you cover, especially, wartime vehicles and things like that. History is a big interest for you. So if you had to make other content on something else entirely different, what would it be?
Other content on the Beyond the Brick channel, or just like content on
in
YouTube
general? Like similar situation to Dave. Like, all right, you just want to do it for the sake of doing it, whether it's on this channel, a different channel, because I know you have the travel channel, but like, that review thing project you have, but that's not serious. So like, what would that project or thing be?
So I think it would be something history related, which is my other big passion, outside of the stuff I've done with Lego. So academically, like history, particularly military history, is what I've always studied. And so the history / travel channel that you mentioned, Destinations of History, is our other very small channel right now, but very much like a passion project for me, where we record educational, historical, and travel videos at the places we visit as we go to Lego conventions around the world. There, John is sharing it right now. So we've got videos on there from Morocco, from Japan, China, all over the world. I'm about to put up some videos from Antarctica, and then we'll have a video from every continent, at least one video from every continent in the world on there once I have that uploaded. So that would definitely be the other thing I would pursue if like I had to leave all the Lego stuff behind. Doing like educational history / travel content is something I really, really love. I spend a lot of time, researching it for when John and I travel to Lego shows, and then we do all our other travel along the way. So if anyone's interested, you can go subscribe to Destinations of History and check out the videos we have on there. I think they're pretty cool. And we try to record videos in more unique places. So not really like kind of the most popular tourist destinations, but places that are a little more out of the way that maybe people aren't always aware of. So there's some pretty neat places on there, but that would definitely be where I would kind of send my time and resources if I had to do something outside of Beyond the Brick.
What I'm hearing is that you're going to have all the correspondents take over Beyond the Brick while you collect the royalties to fund your trips for the channel. Wow, I didn't realize that at the beginning. Jeez.
Are you laying out a new business model for us, Brian?
That's fine. You put me and Mike and Brick, put all the bricks in charge, and you just collect the checks. It's fine. This ship will tank quicker than you could ever anticipate. All of us combined, it'll be great.
Would you say that would be beyond the Brick?
Hey!
Oh, there you go. And that's
there it is
today, folks.
Now you got to bring Dave on because he helped with the name. Dang it! All right, here we go. Collect another check.
I'll just take 1%. Like Lego ideas. That
There you go.
We work
you
on
got
a
nice
system of payment.
Get a nice $10 check in the mail. There you go. It's all set.
Yeah, but I do really enjoy the history travel side of stuff. So yeah, that is definitely where I would go, Brian. So good question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, I just want another content strategy. I want to think long term here. What's the plans for the Hanlon brothers? Go, because I know you like to travel. That's like your main thing.
And
you like. No, go ahead.
It's really, I was just going to say, it's really interesting to see the comments actually that we get on those videos on Destinations of History, because when you do content that's more like sort of overtly, clearly educational, people respond like so positively to it, like even more positive than a lot of the comments we get on Beyond the Brick, because they feel like they're getting basically like the equivalent of like an education for free out of it. And so you just like really positive comments from people who are like, this is so interesting. I never heard of this before. You know, thanks for making the video. So that's one thing I love. This is the most popular video on the channel right now. This is from the Vasa Museum in Stockholm in Sweden, which is an old 17th century ship that sank, and then they pulled it out of the water, and they now have the whole thing preserved. It's really incredible. Really, really cool place to visit. But yeah, so I just love seeing the comments that people have on there, because you can tell how much people appreciate it when they feel like they're kind of getting this educational content from stuff they weren't aware of before.
Yeah, and it seems like you enjoy it. So if you ever want to, you know, toss the keys over to Vision Bricks and you head off, that's fine. Go for it.
We're happy with Beyond the Brick though as well, so it works well to kind of keep both things going right now. Yeah,
right. It helps that you plan all the conventions around places you want to go to, so it just works both ways. I see. Okay.
There you go. I did want to ask Dave though, to circle back around to the Lego stuff now. I know, you know, I mentioned earlier about how you've done a lot of research into these various things with like kids content, especially on YouTube. So I wanted to ask you more about Kappa and kind of everything that we've seen over the last 6 months. And because, you know, we had Jang on last week. We talked with him about how he kind of changed his content up to adapt to those new rules. But just looking at kind of the new policies in general, how do you think that's kind of impacted YouTube as a platform, Dave? And now that we've had several months since that went into effect, how has it rolled out like you thought it would, or what have been the differences that you've seen there?
Yeah, so I've tweeted a little bit, I think some, I don't think John will be able to find those. That's pretty buried, but
Okay.
some like graphs of basically my channel's RPM, revenue per mil, as opposed to CPM, but whatever, they're basically the same, of basically what YouTube pays me for ads that show on my channel per view. And that is like one of the key metrics to understand as a YouTuber or anybody who has an ad-based revenue model. And so what we all knew Kappa was going to affect was that for channels that have content marked for kids, and right, like there were different levels, right? You could either say, none of my content is for kids at the channel level, or all of it's for kids at the channel level. Or you could say, let me mark at the video level. So I marked at the video level because I do have stuff that is literally not for children, right? Like, as you said, when I'm doing a video that's a professional, like, here's what other creators should be thinking about, that's not for kids. And we see in the comments that kids comment like, what is this? I don't want this. I'm like, great, you're reaffirming my marketing. This isn't for you. But anyway, so like, but overall, like 99% of my content historically is for kids, because I have like 600 videos. I'm going to knock this fan around in the background. So most of my channel is going to be governed by what the kids' ad rates are. And so one of the things that Kappa in particular restricted is that you can't do targeted ads on those videos that are now marked as for kids. And targeted ads have a much higher ad rate than non-targeted ads. So the difference between targeted ad and non-targeted ad is basically the internet versus television, right? So if you think back watching TV as a child, right, ads were based on what the program was, right? All the toy and cereal commercials were in front of cartoons, and all the car and pill commercials were on like dramas for adults. And that's how they segmented, you know, who is watching this content, what are we trying to sell to them? Whereas with targeted ads on the internet, you can be like, oh, I want to show this only to people who are between the ages of 20 and 30 and are super into metal bands, right? Like heavy metal. That's the exact audience I want to target. So like I'm going to find I'm going to track them across the internet from everything that they ever go to, because ad networks do that. And then I'm going to serve them my ad specifically to that group of people wherever they go, which might be your YouTube video, right? So if a person who likes heavy metal watches a Beyond the Brick video and there's a heavy metal possible ad, it might show them, right? Even though it's a Lego video, it's not always going to be Lego content, right? It's whatever the person currently watching the video is into and is currently being bid the highest. Relatively complicated explanation, but it's also super complicated how online ad auctions work. So, but now they're like, nah, you can't do that, because tracking what kids do on the internet without parental consent is illegal, against the law. End of story. And YouTube was like, oh yeah, but like had been marketing the fact that they could reach children with targeted ads for a while. So they were literally like, there was like definitive proof that they were breaking the law.
That was like one of their biggest mistakes, I feel like, with that. Like they were like, yeah, kids are on here, it's great.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure your channel was also like in the court case. I don't know if you looked at like some of the documents, but like
what, me or Beyond the Brick? Because I'm
Beyond
like,
the Bricks.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm in the clear. All right, never mind.
No, it may have been not your channel, but there was some Lego channel that I recognized that was like, so basically the campaign for a commercial-free childhood and a bunch of other like interest groups put together like a complaint to the FTC about YouTube and had all of this evidence of like channels like Ryan's Toys World was like a big offender, like clearly marketed towards kids with a kid host. But they also had a lot of borderline cases of like toy content and stuff like that. And so it might have not been Beyond the Brick. Like, don't mean to give you a heart attack, but even if I did, it doesn't matter. Whatever.
Even I got a heart attack, and I'm not. My name isn't on any of the documents. I'm like, whoa, what?
Anyway, so like, it's been kind of an open secret on YouTube for a while. So anyway, now that most of my content is marked for kids, my CPM dropped the day they finally implemented all the COPPA rules on YouTube, which was like January 14th, I want to say, 2020, right? You had to mark your own content by the end of December 2019, but it actually took them like 2 weeks to kind of flip the switch. And you can see it if you have a channel that has a significant portion marked for kids. And right, your content is very different than mine, so you are not really a kids channel in the same way that I am. But so my CPM went down significantly. However, people who want to sell ads to children on YouTube still want to sell ads to children on YouTube. And they can no longer use a targeted ad, which has a higher CPM. So they're going to use contextual ads, which means there will be more competition for contextual ads, which means that the auction prices will go up and up and up because they will have no other way to reach their target audience on YouTube, right? So CPMs tanked immediately in January when all that went into place. In January, when CPMs are already terrible, right? January CPMs are the worst. So like this January was like one of the worst months on my channel. Or actually it wasn't too bad because like a variety of factors. Anyway, my views are like some of the highest they've been right now, which is just like hilarious to me.
You haven't put out new content.
I got like 8 million views in a month, which is a lot for me. I don't know what like y'all are doing these days, but like that used to be like my peak back in like 2018. And then like as I stopped making content, they dipped down to like 2 million was like, I think probably where I low plateaued. But then it's just been creeping back up on all of my old content. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure, fine. So yeah, so literally when the CPMs dropped, my views were like, it was like my third highest viewed month ever. So the revenue was abysmal. But then it's been creeping slowly back up until COVID happened. Because now companies in all industries are like, what? And they had to like pull ads because they weren't contactless pickup, right? Like they like at the ad industry and, you know, the entire global economy went into an entire crisis. I don't know if anyone noticed that's happening, but so then the CPMs were just like, not quite, but they like, so March or May, I think, is now actually one of my worst months ever, just because like people just aren't running as many ads because everyone's trying to figure out like, what are we selling? Is our business still viable? If we can't have people physically in the same place, right? That's just a big open question a lot of businesses are dealing with right now. So like, you know, COPPA is like barely even a factor when you think about just like the viability of YouTube as a business model right now. And right, like, but you think YouTube would be fine, right? Because everybody on YouTube is all digital. But no, the businesses that give all the money to YouTube are all types of businesses. So, right, like the economy being bad globally means it's bad globally. I mean, I'm sure Jeff Bezos is doing fine, but you know.
He's on track to be the world's first trillionaire. He's fine. He's good.
Viva la revolution, eat the rich, etc. Anyway, YouTube CPMs.
Yeah,
so
right.
yeah, COPPA. It was that was like the trend I saw, but like now there's a lot of conflicting data, and it's really hard to like pull out. Okay, is my CPM at this level because of COVID, COPPA, or the fact that I was kicked out of Google Premium, you know, years ago, right? Like but I feel like some of my videos are getting back into Google Premium. Is that what that thing is called? Google Premium. What is that thing called that I was in?
Like Google Preferred?
Google Preferred. Thank you.
Yeah.
The like secret ad tier, right? Which like even a lot of creators don't know exists. And even if you're in it, you don't know if you're in it or not. It's like literally Illuminati level shit.
Yeah, but I don't want to make you relive all of that emotional. I know you've covered that in past videos, so people want to. It is very interesting, kind of what happened with your channel there. We won't make you relive that because I know it's still difficult to talk about.
Oh, like I mean, I enjoy talking about it now because it's so absurd. But yeah, like we don't have to go there. It's not like a fun, happy Lego place. So.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask you, and you seemingly like touched on it here and there, but like just to get like a concrete answer, what in your opinion made your videos suitable to be marked as for kids rather than trying to like think of it in a different way? Or was your decision based on how a court would see it or someone working for YouTube would see it? Or where was your opinion or your thought process based in?
It's just reality. I go to Lego conventions in person and I meet fans in person. And my fans are by and large under the age of 13. It's just like, I mean, I don't know ages exactly, but you can kind of tell how old kids are, right? Like a 6-year-old looks very different than an 11-year-old. And, you know, a 15-year-old looks pretty different from a 10-year-old. So just generally height, like maturity, all those kind of things. So like my most fervent fans were definitely like, I would say 8 to 14 was kind of like the age range that I think was the biggest. And I one time did a poll on my channel, like to kind of gauge age range. And then I was like, wait, is this count as collecting data from children? Did I just break the law by running this poll? Because I've known about COPPA for years, right? Because it's been part of the internet. And it's come up a lot in like thinking about like, is it okay for me to put Amazon affiliate links in my video? Because Amazon is very clear that people under 13 shouldn't be getting affiliate links. But I'm like, I don't know, but like, are the kids clicking on them, or is it just like the parents? And then YouTube's data is really bad because they don't believe that anyone under the age of 13 exists, right? Because they couldn't. So all of your data on YouTube is skewed. But like, I knew that like my biggest fans were kids, and it makes sense. Like Lego is a kid's product. Yes, there are lots of adults who enjoy Lego. I'm one of them. You know, that many of them are in your audience. But by and large, when you think of who uses and consumes Lego most, like just at a broad scale across the world, most of those people are kids. So, right, having a Lego channel and just assuming broadly what is the Lego audience, it's going to lean towards kids. Unless you're really specifically covering, I don't know, the adult community and fan interactions, then, right, like that's different, right? Beyond the Brick is very focused on the adult fan community or the TFL community, but right, teenage fans are as long as they're, right, teenage is fine. It's 12, you know, those tweens that, sorry tweens, we just like, we can't serve you anymore. And right, and like there's a huge difference also between the maturity level of a tween and a child, right? And like we versus like a toddler, right? And some content that is for kids is toddler content. And people are like, well, my content's not for babies. And I'm like, well, yeah, but they're talking about tweens, right? And like tweens are into games and like more like tweens watch Rick and Morty, even though that's like for 14-year-olds. Right. And so like, if you think about tweens as like the cut case, then it's like, oh, like this is really hard to say that like the bulk of my audience, and then it's like how much of my audience, like, okay, well, what is the distribution of the population? Like I looked up population statistics. How many people in the world are of these different age groups, right? And then if 20% of if 30% of the world is under the age of 13, let's say, do I think only kids are only 30% of my audience? Or do I think they're 80% of my audience, 60% of my audience, in which case that age group is overrepresented in my channel's population, and therefore we could say my channel differentially attracts people of this age group. In which case, right, you could make a case legally, statistically, that my channel is for people under the age of 13, aka kids. So like, and I did a like 1.5-hour stream where I talked through that kind of stuff. I think it's called the Future of Lego Content on YouTube after Kappa, something like that. It's got like a YouTube logo monster as its thumbnail. John, is that enough information for you to pull it up? See? So like, yeah, Psyduck was there as my companion. Oh, wow. I had a haircut then. My hair is getting so long now. Right? My hair doesn't seem that long until you compare it to what my normal length is.
Every time John shares a video, you're like, oh, look, you can see my beard or my hair. It's like,
well, what
looks.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I was looking around YouTube and I saw by happenstance that Happy Tree Friends was marked as for kids and you couldn't comment on any of the videos and whatnot. And I don't know if you know, I'm sure you have heard of it or know what it is, but you know, there are these cute little cartoon characters getting literally ripped apart, and it's not very kid friendly in my opinion. You know, there's definitely a lot of gore and a lot of things like that. So I was surprised that like they would mark that as for kids compared to other things. And then by that definition, would Rick and Morty be marked as for kids, even though like tweens watch that, even though it's aimed at adults, but who like that? It's still to me so weird and so confusing. And I think that a majority of the cases for, and it doesn't matter what I think, obviously, but the majority of the cases were for the type of people who were actively, intentionally like, here, let me market towards kids that could buy stuff like, you know, those cosplay channels that would dress up and like, oh, hey, kids, but you know, that's sort of a thing. So I don't know what you would think of that sort of situation where something like Happy Tree Friends would be marked as for kids or something, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's borderline cases, right?
Yeah.
In every system, there are borderline cases, whether that's a legal system or a video game system. There's going to be like weird interactions that, like, no matter how clear you are with your rules, like this is true in math. There's like super weird shit in math. There's going to be situations where you're like, I don't really know how to quantify this. This is like at the edge. It's kind of like this and kind of like that. And it's like, that's why we have lawyers, right? Because at that point, it really becomes, right, like, what can we prove? What is the letter of the law? How would that be interpreted by judges? How has that been interpreted in case history, right? Like, this is like, if you get into legal stuff ever, like I'm a little into legal stuff, just like, growing up in a society where it wasn't legal for me to get married to my husband, right? I had to learn about law more than I wanted to. So like I have learned more about case histories and how those change over time than I would have otherwise. But not everybody does that. But anyway, like that's like edge cases are always dependent on kind of the specific judge sitting / a history of case law. And so there's not a lot of case law for COPPA. So the YouTube case was the biggest case. I think they got the biggest fine in the history of COPPA, even though the fine was like a slap on the wrist and they should have been fined a lot more money. And also, the agreement that YouTube and the government struck is absolute bullshit, right? That creators are the ones responsible for YouTube collecting data on children.
Right.
That, right? Like, who has the data? Is it a creator? Nah, it is YouTube. And you know what? YouTube still has buckets of data it collected on children that is baked into its algorithms, right? That it legally should not have had and only had to pay a little bit of money for. And if you think of how much money YouTube made off of that data, which it still hosts on its servers, because all my comments still exist on YouTube servers, they're just not visible publicly. All the Marked for Kids content that's still up, right? Those comments didn't get erased from YouTube servers. They're still on the back end. I can see them as a creator. So YouTube has them, right? Is that within the letter of the law of COPPA? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it should be. Seems like that should have had to been deleted. And in fact, they should have had to like unteach their algorithm shit. I don't know. Like,
now, as far as I know, there hasn't been a specific channel or entity that has been brought to the attention of the law regarding this situation, right? Not yet. It's just YouTube as a whole.
So again, right, COPPA, right, has case law, but
sure,
YouTube COPPA case law, there's only been a few months for that to have even happened, right?
Before even COVID took effect and threw a wrench in it.
It's like the government has other things to worry about right now.
Sure.
So like another big case before the YouTube case was TikTok, right? Which again, clearly has a lot of tweens on it, and they got fined for that. And right, like and if you think about like where the more important cases are for like defining the edges of COPPA, because that's also, if you're a regulator, you want to think about what's the next big company I can go off that will then set a new precedent, right? So I would be looking at Discord if I was the FTC right now.
Don't give them any ideas. Oh no.
But like, if you think about places where there are lots of kids probably sharing data and, like, but like Discord has a whole different model, right?
Sure.
But like, anyway, like, and it's not like a public thing, whatever. But like,
I feel like there's going to be some sort of not revolutionary, but some sort of law rewritten either by the time like my generation, our generation gets into office and are the old people sitting in the chairs making the laws and whatnot, because a lot of this is still very gray. The internet is still a new thing relative to the timeline of most technology, television and radio and all of that. So there's still a lot that needs to be ironed out. But you could argue you don't even have to argue it. Every single social media site, every single account that you might have or whatever has kids on it. And whether or not those companies want to admit it or not is one thing from the reality of it. So how do you keep that in check when anybody really of any age can make an account and just, I'm 13, I promise. All right, click. And then there's really no way to factor that in unless somebody, you had to log in with your face or thumbprint, or how do you verify for sure that someone's over 13?
Right. But that's why I think YouTube was such a good case for the FTC, because there were so many clear examples of this is for kids and it is not following COPPA guidelines, right? Because YouTube Kids is a terrible app that has existed for a long time that YouTube has never put resources into building because it didn't need to, right? Which was a COPPA compliant app that put some videos from YouTube on. It's not even clear how they decide that. Like a random smattering of my videos are on YouTube Kids, right? But it's not the same as the videos that are marked for kids on YouTube of mine.
Yeah, I looked at, I typed in my name and I was like, all right, what pops up if you type in Brian Saviano or Bricks O'Brien? Nothing. When I checked a while ago. So I'm like, okay, whatever. No, I don't know how they pick and choose, but.
So right, it's like there are ways to make software that is safe for kids to use, that covers some of these same functions, and that's like a whole part of the industry. Hashtag kid tech. Dylan Collins is from Super Awesome, is like probably one of the industry leaders on talking about that, and has worked on a lot of like solutions for social networks that can be used by these different audiences. And like that's why Lego Life looks the way it does, that every username is randomized. You can't set your username because if kids could identify themselves on there, they could become targets, right? So there's like lots of considerations that you have to really think about from like the fundamental ways you build a platform if it's going to be a place that is primarily for kids, as opposed to a place that might include some kids who are smart enough to like get past an age barrier, right? Because a 4-year-old is not going to know how to like break an age barrier birthday thing. Obviously, like an 8-year-old can, right? But there's like, maybe, 4-year-olds are pretty smart. Like,
yeah, I was going to say, really I know I've heard of too many kids who are getting more and more tech savvy earlier and earlier on. From my days working at the Lego store, I would see a 1.5-year-old with an iPad in the carriage. And it's like, you're like, that's really young. And I know, like, I grew up right when I started YouTube in like 2009. I had my first account, which was I over 13? I think I was. Actually, but regardless, that's when I really started with everything. And now I can't even imagine how tech savvy I would have been if I started at like 2. Like, who knows? And then, who knows what those kids are looking up on their iPads and phones and whatnot. Kids have phones in like 4th or 5th grade. And if you don't, then you're the outcast. It's like, how does that? But
and it's like, right, the goal is not to say we'll never, like, there are places that will totally prevent kids from ever getting to, because that's like an unrealistic goal.
Right.
The goal is to be like, how can we, make systems that like work well and don't enable predatory behavior towards children. Because we have ways that we understand how humans develop, and like at what ages, like, people are generally ready cognitively, dexterily for certain tasks, like driving a car, right? And, we can argue exactly where that is, whether it's 16 or 18, but we're not going to give a 4-year-old a driver's license.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that a 4-year-old will never turn the keys in a car because like a parent left it unattended, but it's like, it's not like we're not saying legally it's okay. That is just a thing that could still happen.
Right.
And so like there are ways that YouTube and other social networks who have like these deep artificial intelligence like algorithms that learn could say these comments are clearly from this age range based on how good their English is, right? And it wouldn't be perfect, right? Because you'd have like people who are not native English speakers, but it could probably learn pretty quickly what a 2-year-old types on videos versus what a 12-year-old, 13-year-olds and up type, and then say, okay, these accounts are clearly kids, and we're going to kick them off the platform because this is not a place for kids, right? Like you could. There's ways that you could use all of these systems to make these better without just saying we're going to fine creators who didn't collect data, right? We could put the onus on the companies to be more responsible and use this mountains of data they've collected to actually build systems that like funnel kids to the right places.
But then they don't want to do that. They would rather put the accountability on creators and call it a day, which is part of the systematic issue, which is why I said before, like it's going to take, people who understand the internet very, very, very well to be in places of power in government to be like, all right, now I actually know how the internet works. This is what you as a corporation have to do to hold your end of the bargain while we do what's right and what's best for people. So who knows how long that'll take, though?
Yeah, I mean, I just turned 35, so I am like the youngest person who could become president this year. I'm not running for president because hell no.
Oh, wait, this isn't a big announcement.
No, but like, right, like, I don't know what the youngest age is for like being a senator or a congressperson. But yeah, like millennials are starting to like be old, and I'm not the oldest millennial, but the millennial generation is starting to be at the point where they can hold public office.
Right.
What's below millennial? Gen Z is at the point where they can vote, right? Like all millennials can vote at this point, right? Like the youngest millennial is 20 right now, I think, based on.
I teeter between Gen Z and millennial. I'm 96.
Yeah,
so.
and so like older Gen Z can already vote.
Yeah.
Generation Alpha is nipping at our heels. Generation Alpha is over 13, the oldest ones of those. Like
I didn't even know that was the name of the generation.
Yeah. So basically, because technology is advancing so fast, people are like, yeah, there's like 2 new generations in what have normally been 1 generation.
Right.
So like, as Gen Z, you're like maybe a child of like a Gen Xer, and alphas are like children of millennials and maybe younger Gen Zers, or Gen Xers rather. And right, like there are millennials who are grandparents. So, there's there's literal generations, 2 generations there. If you come from a place where it's normal to have children as a teenager, which it is some places. So, right, like the difference between like a 5-year-old who's grown up their entire life with a smartphone in their hand is different than like a 15-year-old who maybe only got one when they were 8 or 11, right? And so like Alpha is the generation that's like, I'm just like, I don't even know what it's going to be like when they're on. But anyway, right? Like Gen Z is just getting to voting age, right? Like it's kind of teetering around a little above, a little below. So Gen Z is going to be able to, Zoomers can now start voting in millennials, which is what we're going to need to do to change like politics. But
I firmly believe by the point those 1-year-olds with the iPads are able to vote, we're all going to be in the metaverse, hooked in with a wire, you know, in our 20 square foot apartment where all we have is a small bathroom, a little kitchen, and then all of our time is spent in a headset.
And
The more I see kids get into, and by kids, I mean people younger than me. I'm one of those old guys now that just everyone's a kid, but everyone spending their time in Fortnite and Minecraft and Roblox and all that, that is becoming more of the play space. And I think that environment is going to mean even more unique types of regulation in the future. So I have no idea how people are going to handle this stuff. And it's going to take like our generation to really understand it. Until then, yeah, not a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, this is where I'm like already like, I'm sorry, Generation Alpha. I wish I was a better human for you because I guess I'm responsible now. I didn't mean for that to happen.
It's all changing so quickly too. Like trying to keep track of everything in every particular case and making sure you're compliant and keeping everything afloat. Like I'm wrapping my head around it as it is. It's
and like I'm trying to explain to like the boomers I have to interact with, like this is what TikTok is. It exists. You know, like I'm not expecting you to even know how to use it or ever download the app, but you should know it exists and how it's shaping a generation. Because I don't know, like if you think about like what Minecraft did for Gen Z in terms of shaping how they interact with technology, like, or is, you know, continuing to do for Gen Z and Alpha, like I didn't have anything like Minecraft as a kid. And like, the level to which they'll be able to just like, you know, create stuff in virtual environments because they built their own house in Minecraft, you know, and, you know, circling back to Lego, you know, though this is beyond the brick. So, you know,
right. So
Bed Bath and Beyond there. Circling back to Lego, right? That's also a thing that Lego is very clearly aware of, right? That their future as a product created using fossil fuels in a post-climate change world is, you know, has to be different, will have to be different. And, you know, you see that in their sustainability efforts, you know, plants made with plants, but you also see it in the way that they're shifting into just being a media brand, right? If you think about Ninjago, which is as much a television phenomenon as it is a set phenomenon. Like Ninjago fans have had 10 years of content. Like that's crazy to me, that you could be just so deeply in the Lego content ecosystem that exists now. But like, yeah, and like the movies, the games, right? Like you can have like an entire media consumption habit that basically only uses Lego branded things.
Which is why Lego Super Mario is even more impressive because of that technology aspect that, you know, everyone who's grown up with Lego over the years is like, well, this isn't, you know, this is too digital, this is too whatever, but most of the people that are going to buy that and appreciate what it is probably don't have a keyboard and can articulate the thoughts on a forum for other people to read. Those are the people who, you know, the parents are going to buy it at the store, and the ability to take this mini Mario, probably about that big, and pop him around the entire board, and he interacts with the colors that are on the pieces and make your own levels is crazy cool, especially considering how powerful Nintendo as a brand is. It's some of the most recognizable IPs in the world. Like Pokemon is the biggest brand in the world. Like, and that's loosely connected to Nintendo. I mean, it is, but it's a different, you know, whatever. So they have the power to do that. And, you know, I think when more people get their hands on that technology, that's going to change more of what Lego is going to do in the future, because they're probably not going to use this technology for just one thing. They're going to want to maximize the return on the investment with that technology. So will that be in Mindstorm's EV4 or something else? I think that's a clear-cut case of something like that happening down the line. That makes it even more impressive when you look at it with that perspective.
Who else is addicted to this game? Lego Legacy?
Yes.
I've actually been playing a ton of that recently. Yeah, I
have to see the early part.
Super into it.
It's for adults.
Yep.
Because it's all nostalgia. And it's also like a gacha game with like an economy where you're, you know, but like Lego just, I mean, and it's deeply Lego, right? Like
Yep.
it is, every character in there is from a Lego set. And they, aside from maybe the main villain, who is an old style minifigure with like stuff built all over him, which again, deeply Lego history. So, it is not a product for kids, and specifically it can't be because it has microtransactions, and in certain countries you can't have a game like that marketed towards kids.
That's changing even more quickly by the day too. That, video games as well. So I'm sure you've heard all the talk about microtransactions and Battlefront 2 with EA and blah, blah, blah. That's changing even more quickly than any of these COPPA laws, it seems.
Yeah, so I mean, Lego is doing a lot, and right, it's hard to even say what Lego is anymore, right? As a concept and a company, right? Like as a physical building toy, we know what that Lego is. But if we think about it as a cultural phenomenon, right? As you were saying about brands, I'm pretty sure it's like the most beloved brand. Like it beat out Apple. Recently.
It always ranks very high with like the top ranked companies in the world.
Yeah. So like it has a lot of love and loyalty that it's built over the years, and it's going to continue to find new ways to monetize that. And I mean, like, I don't think the company has learned the hard way the lesson of going too hard and too fast into digital stuff, aka when it almost collapsed in 2003 because it was doing too many different things and didn't know what it was doing, and is much more strategic now about using outside partners and building things over time, while still staying true to the core of like the brick. And I think you can see that in a lot of ways in its even digital products, that it learned that lesson from the 2004 Jürgen von Nudstrup, I don't know how to say his name.
Close enough.
Era, and I don't even know who the current CEO is because they did 2 quick changes. Like I can't pay attention anymore. Like, but and like, what is the thing that they have a symposium every year where it's just like weird new play ideas, right? That's like a thing they host somewhere in Europe. And they have a professorship at a college that's like a Lego named professorship to study play. Like they understand what a brand and a company needs to do survive long term is adapt. And if you think about the companies Lego is trying to compete with now, it is not Hasbro or Mattel. It is Nintendo. It is Minecraft. It is Fortnite. It is Disney, right? It is global media brands. And Fortnite doesn't really rank with those other ones, but Nintendo, Disney, right? Companies that focus on play, creativity, a kid audience. Those are the places that Lego is partnering with, but also kind of competing with. And it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. Like, it's only a matter of time until we get like a Lego streaming service for all the Lego content.
That's what Nintendo has always talked about when talking about their strategy. They are not competing for necessarily the best games or the best hardware. It's about people's attention spans. And with Lego, unless you're creating your own things, you typically buy a set for 60 or 50 bucks. You build it, and then it either sits on a shelf or you build something else with it. But video games just have more life to them, and the more interactive and more content you put into that, the longer attention it's going to keep. And with Fortnite, the game itself is free. You can play it free all the live long day. I know someone in the chat right now who has spent 5 months of playtime in Fortnite in 2 years. And he buys all sorts of skins in Fortnite and plays with his friends all the time. And that value is something that only video games, I feel, can provide. So the more people that can get into those type of media spaces and provide their own types of value with that, the more competitive it's going to be. And I see Lego getting into that for sure. So you get the right idea. Yeah.
And I mean, right, like they've tried things like Lego Worlds, which was kind of like their Minecraft clone, but you could allow to visit. But it was a PC game that they tried to port to consoles and didn't think about how the controls would be awful. And I'm sure it was a great experience on PC, but it was a terrible experience on Switch. Right? So they're still figuring stuff out, and like that's also wasn't Traveler's Tales did that, right? I think still.
Yes, they've all been developed by TT as far as Lego Star Wars, the video game on PS2.
Yeah. So, this is not Lego Legacy is Gameloft, right?
Yep.
Because like,
I know, I went there.
Mobile is so different than console or PC,
Definitely.
which is what TT is focused on, and they're pretty good at. So, I think, but now the lines between mobile games and console games are starting to blur, right? Fortnite is totally cross-platform, right? So it's only a matter of time before there's a cross-platform Lego game that's, because again, Minecraft, Fortnite, these are competitors for time. I mean, Netflix released a statement that one of their biggest competitors was Fortnite because it's about attention, right? It's time and attention. And
kids' attention spans change so quickly to the next thing and the next thing, the next show. Like binge watching has turned a whole different page on media because instead of having to wait, 2 months for your favorite show to air, you can watch it in 2 days. So people are in a constant state. And I feel it too, covering video games and playing through video games and live streaming and all that. Like it's always to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I have personally found that I'm always looking forward to the next thing and not paying as much attention to how I feel about it in the moment until it's passed for a long time. So I don't know if there's going to be a shift in perspective where, all right, let's slow down a little bit and actually look at what we have already. I think we might be seeing that right now because everything is, delayed a year. Like Black Widow, the movie is done, ready to go, could air on Disney Plus right now, but it's delayed until November. So all we have left to do is just appreciate what we have instead of go, next thing, next thing, next thing. It's interesting that this is like a test bed for what might happen down the line. Oh, maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, this crisis, I think, in many ways, it's accelerating some changes that were going to happen to business models as people aged and climate change became more real, and like traveling it just becomes prohibitively expensive for a lot of reasons, and like culture changes. It's definitely like, oh, just kidding, we all have to figure it out right now with no warning. Yep. Like the amount of things that have switched to Zoom conferences and stuff like that is just mind blowing. So yeah, I mean, like, and I just want to shout out to Jeff for referencing Lego Universe, the failed MMO that Lego made with what was the company that was making that then like went under, and then Lego like bought out, and like all the employees lost their jobs.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. What it was? They were based in like Colorado or something like that. Yep. I think I can't remember the name of them now.
It was sad. I applied for a job there back in the day when I graduated college. They're like, we need somebody who can design digital Lego models for like an MMO, and I was like, oh, this is my dream job. This was like before, like when I was just starting on YouTube. So you couldn't even make money on YouTube at that point. So I put together a whole portfolio and sent it in, and like based on concept art, and I was super excited. But then I played the game. I'm like, oh, this is not that good. And they could not create content fast enough, and that's something Lego Legacy is the exact opposite of, where they have a very clever model where it's a small amount of content that they can recycle, and because you're bought into their ecosystem and you want to get those rubies, you'll do this mission that's basically just something you've done before, which is fine. Like I love me a Candy Crush time wasting thing. Sometimes I just want to shut off my brain and play something like that on my phone. And if it can be Lego, that's great. Net Devil.
There we go. Thanks, Jeff.
And that goes back to feeling creative burnout, because now creators and developers of games feel even more pressure now than they did before to keep creating more things at a quicker rate to keep people's attentions. And then these big companies don't want to have to hire more people, because then that's more money that takes away from their bottom line, and rinse and repeat the cycle. It seems like it doesn't end. It just seems like it just keeps going forever until I don't know when.
Yeah, and also all the people who are creating more content now to try and take advantage of this are also helping drive down CPMs. Because there's more, like, CPMs go down over time as there's more content on a platform. And, you know, like, just historically, CPMs have gone down. And the more people try to produce more content to raise their revenue, right, the more that they're driving down CPMs. But it's like, everybody's just trying to pay their bills.
Right. It's a cycle, and I don't know. I feel like it's not my job to come up with a solution, or
It's not your job to fix capitalism.
Yeah, well, that's a more ingrained issue with, I think, the world and the United States specifically than people would like to admit, unfortunately.
Because I'm pretty sure we said earlier that it is the responsibility of millennials and Gen Z to, like, figure this shit out. So yeah, it actually is our problem. Uh-oh.
So give it a couple more years when a lot of the kids in the YouTube chat wisen up, or like, and then they actually, you know, have the ability to vote and change things. It's all really scary when you sit back and think about it, which is why I always keep my mind going with Minecraft and Fortnite. If you just keep going, you can't think about it, right? That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a coping mechanism for sure. I used it for a long time.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have the experience you do and the mindset you do, and it's appreciated that you can, you know, speak on it to the level you can for all of us.
That's right. Speaking of which, I know we're coming up on 2 hours here, Dave. So I don't know how much time you had set aside for this. If you have to get going, I understand soon.
You know, like, I'm doing all right. I maybe we should say if there's any questions that people in the chat have for me.
Sure.
Maybe talk about Lego a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, we should go back to Lego instead of capitalism, right? That's fine. That's fine.
Yes, no, for sure. If anyone has any chat, you know, I'm sure there are fans of yours who have watched your channel over the years. So if you have any questions for Dave, definitely this is a good time to put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to have him answer those, because you did put out a lot of content over a lot of years. What was it? Basically like 10 years you were active on there?
Yeah, like Brick 101, the channel started 2009, and I went through most of 2018. So that's technically like 10 years that I think I put in while I was regularly producing content. Obviously, the frequency shifted. Jeff wants to hear more about the shadow government.
Let's do that.
Skywalker wants to know time cruisers or power miners. Obviously time cruisers, because then time cruisers could go to power miners.
That's true.
So it's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, just choose time cruisers, and then you have access to every other Lego theme. Done.
Fresh also wanted to know whom the lunch money donations go to again. I am powered by Chipotle, not sponsored, not like Arby's. So
that's right. Super chats all go to Brian's lunch fund to keep him going on the stream. So if you give any money, it helps keep Brian going.
So yeah, whatever lunch you can get for $2, you're good.
Hey, you know, $6 more, that's a Chipotle burrito. And I did get a Chipotle gift card in the mail from one of the Hanlon brothers. So
wow.
Right. Hey, we gotta send you the money. You know, that's what we say it's for. So that's where it goes.
Exactly.
So that's literally like part of the business model is there's a Chipotle lunch funnel. Great. I love that.
It's great. And on a side note, that Star Destroyer did get sent out today. So not only am I getting the Chipotle gift cards from the Super Chat, I am sending stuff out as well. That Star Destroyer is no longer in my hands. So
there we go. Yes. Our Dave, I don't know if you saw the charity raffle we had going, but we raffled off the UCS Star Destroyer for Creations for Charity. So that was super cool, super fun, and we raised almost $5,000 or like $4,500. So it was great. A lot of great support there. And Brian got out of his office so he can put more Pokemons or something, whatever he has back there.
It's actually Monkey Kid right now. So that's back there.
Yes, there you go. Getting those new themes represented.
Exactly.
I think you actually have something related to Dave on display back there as well. You showed it before we started.
this guy right over here, this Legend of Zelda 8-bit Link over here, very well designed by Dave. I got the pieces for this a long time ago, and I decided to build it just a couple of years ago, and it's awesome, and it's perfectly in proportion to what 8-bit Link would look like right out of the NES. So shout out to you for making the instructions. It looks awesome, and I love it. And I haven't taken it apart all these years later, so that's a testament to something. So
yeah, absolutely. Whether you just don't want to deal with taking it apart, or
right,
and resorting all those parts.
Yeah.
There's a question about your favorite classic space sub theme. Are you much of a space fan, Dave, or is that not?
Classic space sub theme. I'm like, so that does that even include Blacktron or Futron? Are those considered classic space?
Yeah.
What's classic? Or is the stuff I grew up with in the 90s considered classic now because it's 30 years old?
The marker I want to use is that the Nintendo GameCube is now considered retro by the kids. So anything before that.
Sorry, my dog wanted to get in the room. Explorians was my jam. There was also that weird RoboForce that was 3 sets, UFO, insectoids. Give me any of that. Just hook it directly into my veins. Spyrius, Ice Planet, that's my era. So for me, it's more just anything from that 10-year period. Yeah, cool. I never got into M-Tron. That was a little before me. Blacktron stuff is cool, but I never went back really for that. My sister had some of that because she's 9 years older than me. So I grew up with some classic space. But yeah, no, I'm definitely the mid-90s stuff. So somebody was asking Atlantis versus Aquazone versus the new Aqua Raiders, not the old Aqua Raiders. And I'm Aquazone, no question. Aquazone encompasses the best underwater themes. You have people who are stingrays. I love the figures from Atlantis. All the fish people are amazing. Mm-hmm. And the builds are amazing and clearly better. But if you want to just tap directly into my nostalgia veins, it's mid-90s. That's my answer.
It's anything from that period. Were you into the Imperial Pirates Western, that type of stuff?
I was into Pirates, Islanders. Again, would be the mid-90s. Yeah. And I loved the Islanders the most of the pirate genre. And I loved. I got a little into Wild West, not super. I wanted Fort Legoredo, but I never got it. But I definitely got some of the smaller sets. So I would have cowboys, sheriff, Indian, that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, there's so many great themes from that time period. I feel like a lot of my favorite themes definitely from that period, and just I think a lot of the objectively best themes came from that period.
I don't know that themes can be objectively the best, right? I would totally be into Ninjago if I was the right age right now, right? Just I was kind of too old to be into Bionicle. Right? I feel Ninjago is the new Bionicle, and Bionicle is the new, I don't know, whatever. There was no thing like that. That was a theme that was entirely a Lego IP that was fully developed. It was more just the Lego Fan Club magazine had comics that would kind of have that weird maniac character would interact with all of the themes. So Time Cruisers was the closest it ever came to feeling like there was a coherent universe. Aquazone had a 5-year span where it developed sub themes, or the classic space we talked about, but you kind of had to create your own stories. So
did any of those themes you grew up playing with like that from that time period impact what you did with Nightly News at 9 or some of your future YouTube work? Because what you created with Nightly News at 9 is just so cool and so fun, and you scripted it all, and there was so much that went into that. But was that pretty much just kind of all from your own imagination, or do you feel like you pulled from some of those themes or anything you did as a kid that kind of went into that?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's pretty apparent if you look at the work So again, this gets back to like the fact that I had older siblings. So I had some stuff from like the late 70s and 80s. So like the Bill and Mary Ideas book is the impetus for the main characters being named Phil and Sherry.
There you go.
They have the exact same color scheme. And the opening shot of the intro is them in front of a house that's directly out of that book, right? Except their house is on fire, which happens in the book. So is the Nightly News of 9 influenced by the history of Lego things that I grew up with? Yeah, pretty deeply. Like, you're like, is it from my imagination? I'm like, do you understand that my imagination and the history of Lego themes are not like separate things?
Yeah.
that was just like what I grew up with. So
no, that makes sense, right? Obviously, yeah, you could pull a lot from that. Have you ever heard of there's an Australian Lego blog called Rambling Brick, run by a guy named Richard Jones. His research into the Bill and Mary like history timeline is just like so hilarious when I've talked with him, and he'll just go like so deep into it and trying to track it all. It's crazy.
It's great. It's perfect. Like the fact that he thinks like they're now like the old couple in like the City Ideas People Pack and stuff like that, and like tracing the history of Lego figures that like over time. I love it. It's right. And Joey, Maniac for Bricks, does that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he the one who does like deep Lego lore, like tracing, like the history of, I mean, Johnny Thunder is like probably when Lego really started intentionally doing that, right? Of doing then callbacks to old themes. I don't know if Adventurers did it, but Johnny Thunder is like one of the first characters that was really named and now has become kind of iconic. Like, I mean, yes, Captain Redbeard or whatever, but I don't know. Johnny Thunder to me is kind of like, it's what would have been the Bionicle in Ninjago of its time, right? I could have watched a DuckTales style Lego Adventurers show, right? Like you can imagine that in your head, and like all the sets would go right in with it. And Monkey Kid being the newest version of this.
Yeah, Kevin says in the chat, Joey hosts Brick Theory, deep Lego lore. There you go. So yeah, people. So that's the great thing about the Lego community on YouTube these days compared to what it was, 10 years ago or something. Is there's just like so much more unique content out there like that, and people have just gone in so many different directions. And no matter what type of Lego fan you are, there's someone on YouTube creating content around like that theme or that interest, or they've taken like a really deep dive into the history of that theme and looked into it.
Yeah. What I really need is just somebody to give me like a 8-minute video essay that explains like weird Bionicle memes to me, right? Like I don't have time to like read about Bionicle and understand it, but I'm sure there's like some weird esoteric Bionicle memes that go around in that community that you need to understand a lot of lore. And I just want I just want the video explainer. That's the type of content I look for on YouTube these days.
Yeah, so we need like a casual explain for Bionicle memes in the Lego community.
I mean, I definitely got into the a man has fallen into the city, the river city, meme a little bit, and I was like, wow, like this isn't really a meme for me because I didn't watch these commercials on television, but there's an entire generation of people who just saw all of the Hey commercials, and like it's tapping into their nostalgia, which isn't for that long ago. I'm like, are you allowed to have nostalgia for 5 years ago or 10 years ago? I guess so. I'm just old.
It's just what happens. Sorry, I don't know what to do about it.
But yeah, I think I probably will head out. This has been super fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Brian must have had to take a break real quick, but I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. But yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's been fantastic. Like I said, getting your insights into all of these things is great. So I hope you'll continue to be a part of the community, because I think we all need what you can offer to us and your insight into that. So I definitely look forward to seen any videos you do. I know it sounds like you'll be active on Brickworld Virtual at least. So if people want to see more from you, some builds, whatever it might be you're doing over there, definitely go over and sign up for the Brickworld Virtual shows, because I mean, not only does Dave have content there, but like you said, there's people like Kevin Hinkle and tons of other builders and artists and lots of other people that will have rooms in those Brickworld Virtual shows. So for the price of admission, you can see a whole lot of content over that span of 6 hours.
All right, awesome, and thank you, Jeff, for calling this the best GD interview they've done. I feel honored.
There you go. Yes, we'll have to have Dave back as a recurring guest on Quarantine Cast here. You're a fan favorite.
Sounds good. I'll probably be in the same room wearing the same shirt. So see you then.
Yeah, see ya. It's great to talk with you.
All right. Have a good one.
Yep, bye. Now I'm just going to talk to the Mario that's in Brian's chair until he returns. So this will be fun. We can have an in-depth discussion about the Mario sets that are going to come out later this year. And just little plushy Mario there and me. So wonderful. Let's see if anyone, let's see, Kevin in the chat says we'll never let Dave leave this community. That's right. The community needs Dave and everything he has offered to the community over the years. So that's very true. It's been great seeing his work. Rogue Runner says, there's the key to growing your Lego channel, folks. Wear red shirts. I don't think I've ever thought about that before, but I'm pretty sure you just hit on the single biggest reason for the success of Beyond the Brick. So thank you for that, Rogue Runner. You have cracked the code. I appreciate your insight there. That's the only tip I'm going to give people from now on. Whenever they ask about, YouTube tips, content online, whatever it is, it's just everything else is secondary. And I'm pretty sure the rest takes care of itself from there. John might disagree, but that's what I'll tell people. Kevin says it's time to use my Mario knowledge. Well, that's super limited. Let's see what recent Mario knowledge have I picked up. I recently, for the first time, played the Luigi's Mansion 3 game on the Switch. A friend of mine who has a Nintendo Switch, so that was fun. I did the first couple floors of the mansion. Oh, here's Brian. That's good. You're just in time to hear me talk about how I played Luigi's Mansion 3 for the first time recently.
One of my favorite games on Nintendo Switch. You're in for a good time.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I played for a while and worked through the first beginning bit of it. I never played any of the Luigi's Mansion games before or anything like that. So now that I finished the main story on the Breath of the Wild game, I think Luigi's Mansion might be my next Switch game that I tackle.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. Did Dave have to dip out?
Yes. Yeah. He he was in a couple hours. So I think that was plenty. He needed to go get some other work done, I'm sure. But that was a great discussion. Thank you for your insightful questions. I hope everyone in the chat enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, I think about that stuff a lot, but don't really have a lot of opportunities to talk about that stuff. It was good to ask him those sort of questions. So it was
Dave is back in the chat now, so he's just gonna sit in the chat.
There you go. That's fine. There's a version 3. I'm obviously not up to date. Yes, it is on the Nintendo Switch. They came out with Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube, Dark Moon, which is number 2 on the 3DS, and now Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch. So yeah, we awkwardly looked at your empty chair and discussed you being gone for a good 6 minutes. Wow. Okay. Well, I feel great about that one now. Yeah. Sorry about that, but glad I could talk to Dave. And
this is what you support with Brian's Lunch Fund.
Yes, that's exactly it. Precisely. So
no, it's good to get up and walk around a bit.
Oh yeah.
The most hilarious part of Luigi's Mansion 3 for me, in the part I played so far, was when there's a professor guy. Is that right? He's the guy.
Egad.
Yes. And he pulls this little thing out of his car that then blows up into his lab in the parking garage.
Yep.
And that whole thing was just so absurd. It's he just pulls this thing out and it just balloons up in this parking garage.
If you pay attention, that game specifically has such good animations and shows the character of all the different characters very, very well. like all the super smooth movements and just the way that they captured Luigi and Egad and all, like everyone's much more animated than a typical Mario game, so it adds that much more character to it. And when I was playing it like on Halloween night and live streaming it and doing videos, I was up until like 6 a.m. doing videos. It was like such a vibe. And you're playing it, I guess, not at the right time. October's the right time.
Okay, I'll stop and play later.
Yeah, no, but like it's so fun. I'm so glad you're gonna get into it. It's good.
Yeah. I noticed that for sure. Like what you were saying about the way they like fleshed out the characters and like the animation with it, the way you interact with the world, like the world around you and the different levels. Definitely, like as someone who hasn't played a lot of Mario games, I don't know, it really appealed to me. I don't if that's significantly different than a lot of the other games. Maybe that's why, but I was really enjoying it.
Yeah, the Switch has had a whole new era of like attention to detail to Mario, and that specific studio, I believe Next Level Games, who made that game, has such a level of care unlike other studios that work on other games for Nintendo. So it's very, very special, and it really surprised me how amazing it was, and just the lighting engine, and it helps that the vacuum cleaner is very it does a good job of showcasing the physics and the way all the money blows around everywhere, and curtains, and when you jump up with your vacuum, like the dust comes out. It all works in unison, and it's so polished, and it's just it's great.
I haven't actually gotten to the point where you can spend the money you collect yet. Is that like opens up later, I'm assuming?
Yeah, you don't really need it for that much.
Okay.
So you can get like an item where if you faint, you get a revive. So kind of like a self-revive sort of a thing. You can buy a device that'll allow you to find some of the boo that are in the mansion, but it's not really about that. All the 100% rewards for that are not really that great. So I would say just play it, and you don't need to capture every single dollar, every single coin.
Okay.
If you want to keep enjoying the game and get the full experience, yeah, but you don't just play through the story and focus on the puzzles. That's where it shines.
I've triggered Dave in the chat now. He says Luigi's Mansion is not a Mario game. So, okay, my bad. I apologize to the Mario fan community.
That's okay. That's okay. But Luigi gets his time to shine. And, Mario Odyssey is the definitive Mario game. If you haven't had a chance to play that yet, that should be next for you. So
I have not tried that. Yes, it's good. It's good to have a long list that I can continue to work through.
Rogue Runner says, I don't know who to look at on the right of the screen, Brian Kirby or Squirtle. Well, Kirby is by far the most impressive thing on screen. That is very cool. Squirtle is staring into my soul. Oh, so there's that Kirby. There's this Kirby. There's Squirtle and Pikachu staring into my soul, as well as Niffler, and then Link, Eevee. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Which one is Squirtle?
What?
Which one is Squirtle back there?
You don't know what Squirtle looks like?
No.
That one.
The blue one? The big blue one. Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I have zero knowledge of any of that stuff.
Oh, that's fine. No, you're good. You're good. Those are the Pokemon pop figures. I get the big ones. There's like little ones that they sell too, but I just go for the big ones because they look better on here. But I want to redo all of this space here again. I usually change it once a year, but I want to change it up. That way it looks a bit more organized instead of a bunch of stuff on a shelf. So maybe by the next time you see me, probably not. It'll be a little while, but I got to change stuff up eventually. Can we discuss Brian's pick game stream on Lego Racers last week?
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you, Kevin. I forgot to bring that up. Oh,
I was so determined. I'm like, these guys are going to cut this, and I'm done. I'm washed up forever. Oh, man. I don't know.
We're about to hit send on a new batch of lunch money, and it's just all went down the drain.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, I appreciate you guys just letting me keep going. And, I'm glad that John...
What is this?
So this is where the stream starts now when you go back and watch it. But there was 20 minutes of me not having any audio, the capture on the game not working properly. So do you want me to explain what happened here? Do we have time? Is that a thing?
We have plenty of time. We need every detail.
Cool.
Real quick before you start, I remember I did watch the very beginning of this, and it was after you. I couldn't watch it while you were live, so I watched the recording later. And it just like is this shaky footage at the beginning, and then you're just like screaming in the background. Like, well, this is the greatest start to any Beyond the Brick stream ever. We'll never top this.
Right, with the fan reflection in the TV and all that. So what happened was I've used previous devices, which is basically a little box about yay big, and it converts the yellow, white, and red cables from like, the CRT days into an HDMI for my device. So it's some, knockoff, not official thing off of Amazon, probably made in China, whatever, not quality hardware. And I used it and it worked fine. And what did Kevin say? Brian literally knocked it out of the park. It was the best train wreck I've ever seen in a while. Thanks, Kevin. Love you too. So I started setting that up and the signal wasn't working. And I'm like, okay, weird. So tried, do some science. I'm like, all right, what's the issue here? Is it the capture card? Is it my computer? Is it the HDMI cable? Is it the box? Is it the system? And everything was working except the box. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to have to use an emulator because I just don't want to do that. And I thought as it was getting closer, I'm like, I might have to. And then I tried setting up the emulator. It's like Project 64, and I couldn't hook up my Xbox controller to make that work. And I didn't even have like any of the files to make the thing happen. I'm just like, all right, well, this isn't going to work. So what do? I used an even cheaper knockoff receiver to set this thing up here. And so that ended up working. Now on there is a little switch to switch between outputting 720p or 1080p. As I was switching it to 1080p, the little knob on there actually broke. So this is actually a piece of garbage hardware that's been sitting in my bin for 3 years. So I did that and then it worked. And I'm like, beautiful, let's go. As soon as I started up and the overlays were all messed up, everything was all messed up. So as soon as I started setting that up, then the signal went out on the stream for the game. I could see it on my TV, as you're seeing here, totally fine. But the box must have thought like, oh, this is a copyrighted signal from a PlayStation. You're trying to record Netflix. We're not going to allow it, even though it's a Nintendo 64 game or something like that. So the box was just like, you know what? No. No, not
today.
No, not today. Not ever, actually. So that signal stopped working. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And when I get into that mindset of like everything's falling apart, this happens on my streams all the time. If somebody like misbehaves or something happens where it's taking me out of trying to like be on and be entertaining and whatever, it totally messes with me. So I'm not only trying to keep people's attentions, keep my sanity, but also figure out what's going on. And so it wasn't until somebody in the chat, I don't know who, said, you could just point the camera at the TV. And I'm like, this is how I did it in 2009. Beautiful. So I literally took my, multi-$100 HD camera over here, Canon DSLR, the SL3, pointed it at the TV, pulled the focus, and not only use this microphone to commentate myself, take the second one and extend it all the way to the speaker by my TV, have the TV loud enough that way you could hear the game audio as well as me at the same time. And that's how we did the remainder of the stream. And it was just a time. Oh my goodness.
That's so amazing. I appreciate you sticking with it and figuring it out. Because like you said, you start kind of like panicking and you're like, okay, it's all going wrong. What do I do? And it's easy to just like give up and be like, okay, I'm just going to skip it for today. We'll figure something out for the future. But no, you didn't do that, which is good. I think that's a good thing. And people still had fun with it. Lots of comments in the chat saying how fun that stream was.
Yeah, I didn't want to, and I know you guys would have understood if I was like, this just isn't going to work. And
no, you're one and done, actually. That's the contributor policy here. So
geez, really? Wow. I'm surprised you didn't get rid of me sooner. But, I didn't want to let you guys down. I want, the audience anticipates that, there should be something going on right now. So I'm like, all right, let me try to work with it as best I can. I can do this on my channel all the live long day. If I have technical issues, everybody's like, "Oh no, we understand. It's it's fine." But like here, I want to be on point. I want to deliver if I can. So yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me still do it. And then, like I suggested to Tim, that he actually cut out the beginning part of the stream where I was struggling with no audio for 20 minutes. And it literally starts when I'm changing the camera to see that I am literally pointing my camera at the TV. So I think it's a good testament to, like, you know, as much as I think I have my stuff together and know what I'm doing and like to treat it as professionally as I can, you know, sometimes when it comes down to it, just pointing your camera at the TV and rolling with it, you just got to go and you just got to do it and hope for the best. So a lot of people had fun with the car specifically and the character. So,
I saw Joey's post on Twitter, so I didn't totally catch that because I didn't see the stream. So what was the story behind that?
So when I was, I just figured it out. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to make a car because that's what you do in this game. So I literally cobbled together the most horrific piece of garbage car you possibly could. And it was on the, after me being frustrated about all the technical issues, and I'm like, whatever, tossed it together. And it became a meme within the meme stream of like, look at this cobbled together mess that is somehow getting second or third in every race. And it ended up just working. So now I feel obligated to have that be a part of my background in some capacity as a testament to the fire that was, and remember to learn from it. So I'm going to get it eventually. Yeah, this is where I make the car. It's literally like, and I couldn't even save it because I didn't have the Rumble pack, which I didn't, or you know, save whatever it was. So it's not saved until, you know, this stream here. So it's still, it's a thing. So yeah, I said during that stream, we should have a Lego YouTuber Lego race off for something at some convention at some point. You get all your favorite content creators together and race for the championship. The prize will be something, but yeah, that'd be pretty fun, I think.
I like Rogue Runner saying, will Beyond the Brick be putting Brian's car design on Lego Ideas? Oh, yeah. That's tempting. Man, can you imagine that?
Can you imagine how little people would vote for it? Like,
oh, you don't know, Brian. You start getting Beyond the Brick fans going, doing it basically for the memes at that point.
Right. I mean, there was like over 4,000 raised for the Creations for Charity event. I initially said 1,000. So, you know, hey.
Man, that would be hilarious.
Look at this. Why would you try this?
Would it break any terms of service or anything on Ideas? I don't think so. You're just putting a car out there, so I think you can do it.
What are they gonna say? They're gonna be like, no. Hey, there's all sorts of stuff on there that probably won't get made. Do you think this car will get made? Probably not. But you know, maybe that's enough to bring to the attention of someone to be like, hey, we should do a Lego racing game, but even like better. Because the idea of this game is still fun, and you know, it has all the classic characters. You could literally just do that. I'm working on a UCS model of your racer as we speak. Well, thank you, Jeff. That is very encouraging. Thank you.
Jeff, if you build the model and put it on Lego Ideas, we will share it on social medias with all the Beyond the Brick fans.
You can keep the 1% residuals. That's fine.
Yes, we will give you the 1% if it gets made into a set.
So you'll literally get like a penny from those sales. You're welcome. It's a luxury vehicle. Yeah.
This game Racers was on PC, right? At one point?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like sure that growing up, I had this on the computer. One of the Lego Racers games.
I think Racers 2 was.
So right. Okay. So that was it.
Yeah, I've been looking into, you know, how would I make the UFO pulling me back there? Like what would it take to get other Lego games on for a live stream? And I got one of the Lego games that a friend lended to me, and I tried installing it on my PC in 2020, a game from 2002. Obviously doesn't work. So I got to figure out how to get other things running without, like, I'm not going to pirate software and all that. So I got to figure out legitimately how to do all this. Constable Dickey with the $10 super chat wanted to send much love to Bricks O'Brien, aka the best. Oh, come on, Cat. You don't know. Of course, Beyond the Brick. So
thank you for that, Constable. Brian's lunch fund is growing. So I think I was actually going to ask you. I was meaning to send you a message. So we sent you the Chipotle gift card, but what other places do you like, or do you want to just stick with Chipotle? Well, I can't see it. Sorry. Oh, is that Dunkin'?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Anything else would don't send Domino's. My heart can't take it. Dunkin' Donuts would definitely be it. That's what I use for energy at the beginning of these streams here. So yeah, I'd say that.
They have a good app, don't they, where you can get like rewards and stuff? You use that?
Oh, I use it. Don't worry. I got like 4 coffees saved up. The entire month of July is like set. I'm good. So, it's all good. Dairy Queen.
Well, then I know what we'll send you next. Good stuff.
Yep. I do like Dairy Queen, but Dairy Queen is not as easy for me to get to as a Dunkin' Donuts. There's literally 2 Dunkin' Donuts within a half mile right here.
Oh, that's so nice. I love Dunkin'. I wish I had one that close.
What's the coffee place of choice down there? Starbucks?
We just got so we have both Starbucks and Dunkin' in this area, but we just got a Starbucks like 3 minutes down the road from where I live. So that's been my most recent one. I've been hitting that up a lot. The close, there's a couple Dunkins, but they're both probably like 20 minutes away, 15, 20 minutes away. So it's just not as convenient. But when I'm near one, I like to stop there.
Yeah, totally. Like that. Those are some of the only 2 chains I go to, other than occasional McDonald's, which I really don't, want to go to. But like there's no Arby's around here. There's no Tim Hortons, obviously. It's very. And there's enough pizza places around here that Domino's is not the go-to. There's no Panda Express because Chinese places are really good around here. So yeah, it's literally in lieu of where there would be those, it's Dunkin' Donuts everywhere, and I'm okay with it.
Interesting. So we just have like all the chains here, like in the South Bend, Northern Indiana, where I live. It's just like nothing. I mean, there are some non-chain restaurants, but it's like every imaginable chain because we don't have like a whole lot of those local places with like a lot of good, like authentic Chinese or, Japanese food or something like that. So
yeah,
you get a lot of the chains going, and that's what you deal with.
Yeah. Boston's like a hotbed for all those different types of cultures coming together, and especially Italian food, like, North End of Boston. That's where you want to be. Seafood. There is no Red Lobster around here. Get that out of here. Get it out. No way.
Yeah.
Not a chance. If you have a Red Lobster around here, it won't be set up in flames, but that'd be kind of much. But like, it would be a ghost town immediately. So
that's what I love about the meetups John and I do when we travel with people when we are in some other country, because they just take us like all the like best local, like no chain restaurants, like all of their like favorite local restaurants in whatever country we're in, and we just eat like the best food that whole time whenever we're traveling.
That's perfect. The only food that we don't do well over here is I would probably say barbecue is a solid one. That's like, it doesn't really hit because it doesn't have like that southern flair to it. So like, when you're down south, I feel like it's like, just pack in as much flavor, which is, fat, I guess. Like, it just don't worry about the calories. Just keep eating. Just keep binge eating ribs, and it just tastes good, but then you'll keel over. So there's a balance there.
There's a trade-off there.
Yeah. Do you like life or so we don't do that as well up here, but everything else, you get a good variety.
Rogue Runner with the Beyond the Brick Dunkin' Donuts partnership idea, man, I would be all for that. I think both Brian and I are big fans. So if they wanted to have a Dunkin' Donuts location built, I'd have no part in that. I got no creativity. So you give it to Boone, and maybe he likes Dunkin', Boone is actually a major Starbucks fan. He has like he never goes without a iced tea from Starbucks, like all day, every day. So that's
that's like the Tivana coming in there. When I think Starbucks, I think like, you have your very large round sunglasses on with your fur coat, and you show up and like, I want my mocha chapai fracha halababa. You get that, and it's $17. It's very, very high class, which is not me. So I go for not that Dunkin' isn't, but
I like. Well, see, it's very Dunkin' and Starbucks have very different environments. So like Starbucks, when the one opened just down the road from me like a year ago, and I still was working on my master's degree then, and so I would go there and like study and read a lot, and it does have like a really nice, chill, like study vibe to it. And so I love that. So I would spend a lot of time there. But like Dunkin' does not have that vibe. At least the ones I've been in.
Dunkin' Donuts is made for the New Englander on the go. You're about to park your car in the garden yard, and you got to go grab yourself a coffee from Dunkin'. You know, you get in, you get out, you do your thing, you go home. You know, kid,
Right,
that's how
exactly.
you do it around here, kid.
So it depends on kind of the vibe you're going to. Like, yeah, the most times I go to a Dunkin' is when I'm in like a big city, usually on the East Coast somewhere, and they're everywhere. And so I'm just like always stopping in Dunkin' as I'm walking around or something because it's convenient and it's good.
If you want to write your manuscript, you go to Starbucks. If you want to get in and get out, you go to Dunkin'.
There you go. Either one can sponsor Beyond the Brick. We're open to any and all comers.
That's fine. You know, my views and opinions of Starbucks do not reflect those of Beyond the Brick. They'll be more than happy to take any corporate money anybody wants to give them. Don't worry.
Yes.
That's fine.
If Lego doesn't buy us out first, as a Dave
if they do, you know, I mean, I'm down for it. I don't know what you and Tim think, but you know, we'll see. The place that I would go to write my manuscript besides Starbucks would be the other place around here that I see people lurking and working is Wegmans is a very big hotspot for sitting.
We don't have those here.
You don't have Wegmans? Oh,
no. But I've heard of them, and I think I've probably stopped in once or twice. Is that a what exactly do they sell there?
So it's everything. It's a typical grocery store. They have vacation juice there. A lot of it, a whole section dedicated to that, which it's code word for me in my streams is alcohol. They also have a hot food. So they have hot food bars where you can have anything from soups to various different salads, Chinese food, Italian food, pizza, wings, and subs in general, bakery, whole 9 yards. And then at least in my location nearest me in Burlington, up top, there's a whole section where there's booths and tables and whatnot, and people will literally just camp out there with their laptop headphones and just work there as opposed to, you know, sitting in an office all day. I mean, not now, but, you know, they would sit there, hang out, you know, feel amongst other people existing in a room that isn't an office. So it's a vibe. When I used to leave the Lego store after my shift, I would go to Wegmans to get a sub and then sit in the upper portion and watch the TV. And there's always HGTV playing every single time. And so I think about, man, that tile really does go good with that backsplash on that countertop. Really, you know, just think about life for a little while, you know? So it's a whole vibe. You just gotta, so I'll take you there when you guys come to Boston. I'll show you the TV that's playing HGTV and be like, hey, there it is. And then
I love grocery stores like that. So like we have a place called Martin's here that's like very local to just like Indiana, Michigan. I don't know if it's in any other states, but so it's pretty hyper local to just this area. But it sounds very similar to that. So it's got like a lot of different eating options. You've got like the deli. They have like really, really good paninis that I love to get whenever I'm there. And they've got like a second story section where people can go and like study and eat or whatever. And my like undergrad college work was like exclusively sponsored by Martin's in terms of where I spent my time and ate. And it just was a great place to go and do and work and study. So places like that are great because they have like, they are a full grocery store. You can go and get like basically whatever you want to drink or like anything you want. But then they also have nice places to just hang out. Right.
I've wanted to put in my online dating profile that like my ideal date is going to a Wegmans and talking about life for a while. Because, like, I'll be there, you know, just sitting, hanging out, and then like I don't know what day of the week it is because I don't pay that much attention, but I'll watch an entire group of like friends get together and have a board game night in Wegmans and just take over a whole section, and it's just a vibe, you know. I miss those days, man. I miss them. Hopefully soon.
Martin's always has the old folks euchre club, which I don't know if euchre is a popular game where you are a card game.
No, I've seen Scrabble and I've seen knitting.
Okay, yeah, but there's always the card playing folks that are there. So.
It just has this sort of gravitation toward it. It's just chill, you know. Nobody's making a big fuss, you know. Like Starbucks is always so like close quarters and there's always people hustling and bustling, but like Wegmans, at least, and what you're describing too, is a lot more chill.
Yep.
You know,
I'm always happy. That's another thing to add to the Boston tour when we're there, Brian. Looking forward to it. I can't wait. just go around eating amazing food with you.
Yeah, no, there's a whole slew of things I could show you. It would need a while, obviously, but you'll do what you can do, and that's it. I ended up playing Lego Racers on the N64, Brickman. So you're seeing a literal cartridge and controller and everything, totally legit. The device, I actually bought a device that'll go directly from the back of that console into HDMI. That is not a receiver box. So that should be here for June 2nd. So the next stream will be something not on a Nintendo 64, but it will work. I promise. I have the hardware. It'll work. So
I'm trying to. What does an N64 controller look like? I'm trying to remember now.
Wow. Okay.
I never had like classic game systems growing up.
Wow.
Like it was just kind of the stuff that was out, at that time period when I was a kid. So
give me a hot second here. I'll find it. Distract the audience.
Thank you. Yes, this is why I have to have Brian educate me on all these things, because he's much more knowledgeable in these areas. I've also been enjoying this content from the stream he did. So you can see the wonderful gaming streams that Brian does every Thursday starting at 1 p.m. Eastern time here on Beyond the Brick. So for those of you just joining us, you haven't seen Brian's gaming streams, you should check him out. He plays a variety of games, whether it be Lego Racers, Harry Potter, Star Wars, lots of neat stuff coming over there.
Because let's be honest, you have nothing better to do anyways, am I right?
That's exactly right.
You have the N64 controller. Okay. Have you ever seen one of these, Joshua?
I have seen one. That's in my head. That's kind of what I was thinking, but I wanted to confirm that I didn't have it mixed up with something else.
So this controller is unique in the sense compared to other controllers at the time and even today that you can hold this multiple ways. You can hold it just like this if you wanted to. Okay, you can hold it like that. Hold it like this. Hold it like this. Don't hold it like that. And fun fact for you, in a game called Mario Party, there is a mini game in there where you have to twirl around this analog stick right here. And so when you're playing a video game, typically the game system will only register so many times you going around like that. And then otherwise there's like a cap to it. So that's not really a detailed way of explaining it, but you get the idea. So in the N64, as many times as you can spin this around is as how many times it will register. So what would happen is in the Mario Party game, you would have to spin around that control stick as fast as you possibly could. And people were doing that to the point where they were getting burn marks on their hands. So Nintendo, in losing a lawsuit or to prevent a lawsuit, I forget, had to send out gloves to anybody who wanted them to protect themselves from getting burned because of how that minigame worked with this controller here. So
that is amazing.
Fun fact for you. And in case any of the kids out there don't know, this is what a Nintendo 64 cartridge looks like. This is authentic. This isn't some printed nonsense. It's authentic. All right. Want to make sure because I don't do fake stuff. All right. The way that you get this game to work in your console, as seen right here. All right. The way you get this to work, you have to blow on it just like that. And then the satisfying sound of it going into the console. What? Just like that.
So nice.
Satisfying. Doesn't compare to any, disc going into a hard drive. Nothing compares to having to blow on the cartridge and then you put it on and then you just feel powerful,
I love it.
Kevin's feeling like a fossil as he should.
Kevin's making fun of me in the chat, which is nothing new, but my parents weren't into gaming at all. So it was never a thing of so there was never a reason to have a gaming console before like me and my siblings were old enough to game. Right. We never got anything from before that time period. So we had a game. The GameCube was the first one we ever used a lot. So anything like GameCube to today, we might have used it, but anything before the GameCube, I never used.
Yeah, nobody in my family was gamers either, but it just ended up, the colorful characters and the whimsy of it gravitated me towards it, and that took precedent when being an only child in the city, there weren't many opportunities to play outside with friends. So what do you do all day? You do that. So
that's understandable. Brian or Kevin in the chat is like, oh, I feel like Josh was the kid who chased the wooden circle to stick down the road in his childhood. Which, by the way, super fun activity. I've seen that at a lot of historical reenactments. Those kids look like they're having a lot of fun, all dressed up in their like 19th century garb, you know. So don't knock it till you try it, Kevin. But also, yeah, I had 4 siblings, so there's 5 of us, and we have like woods and stuff. So there was a lot of time spent outdoors doing that stuff. But in your situation, Brian, I can very much understand why like gaming would be more of what you would have done.
Yeah, I mean, we did have the wheel with the stick. That was a thing. Yes,
what
that
is that video John found.
It's in black and white. How much fun he's having. Look at that. He doesn't know what video games are. He doesn't care. Not a care in the world. It's bigger than him.
How did you find this footage of me as a child, John?
Oh man! Look at that. He's just smacking the stick. He's like, "Come on, go."
Oh, that's so good.
I did have that in my schoolyard though. So in elementary school, we had it was an all like this is going to sound really sad. It was an all concrete playground that had cracks in it and moss and everything and whatever. And there was actually a fence around the section, like the building itself, because the top of the building was falling down onto the ground, so it was fenced off.
Oh my!
So no kids would go in there, and the only time we could go in there is to get the dodgeball if it went over or whatever. But then there's like fencing all around there, and then one of the things we had was that stick in the wheel. And everyone was like, "This is dumb," and the teachers were like, "We agree." And then the kickball came out, and that's what it's at. So, yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, it worked at the time, I guess.
Yeah, that game was all the rage for a lot of years.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anything to entertain yourself, kids can be entertained with amazing things.
And now we have smartphones, so that is irrelevant. Little Joshua with his buckle shoes and ruffled shirt chasing the circle.
Oh, you know it, Kevin.
Oh man,
chase that circle for miles.
It's really a euphemism for today and beyond the brick. It really is in some way.
Oh, that's why in my head, it's always so weird to me that I became a YouTuber, because like if you knew me growing up, like I was like super quiet. I was super into I just read like history books all day, and wasn't super into like stuff online or like we played video games, but like wasn't super into a lot of that stuff. So the fact that I now like John and I do YouTube stuff full time is always still a little strange to me, because for a lot of my life you wouldn't have thought that's the direction it would go in.
Yeah, I kind of fell into it, I guess, more organically, but yeah, based on everything you guys like. And, neither of you, I feel like growing up were like, oh, I want to be in front of a camera entertaining people and like hosting in this capacity. Like I always had an idea maybe that I wanted to do something like that, just to, I don't know, for the sake of doing it. But yeah, I wouldn't take you guys for those types.
Yeah. Is there Stuart? Is there a stick and hoop app for a smartphone? Yeah, I'm sure somebody's done it. But if not, hey, there's your business idea. Stuart, quit the Lego house. They don't need your talents there. You got to make that app.
Absolutely not. Sega Dreamcast rocked for a couple of years. I remember that. That was a time. Crazy Taxi on the Dreamcast, and yeah, Pikmin on the GameCube. Totally. Those are all great games of their time, for sure.
When did the Nintendo 64, does the 64 indicate, what does that mean in the name of that?
So you go from 8-bit, which is like NES and all that. The Sega Genesis was 16-bit, so it doubles the amount of bits that the system uses to register graphics, from what I remember. And the Nintendo 64. So everything developed from that point on. And then the GameCube was going to go with like a 128 theme and double as it went on. But then they're like, we don't want to do that. So it represents that. And that's, the graphics enhanced that, the ability to process more 3D graphics, because there was like Star Fox on the SNES that kind of had the pseudo 3D thing that used the Super FX chip. But on the N64, that was fully realized. So 3D graphics in that sense. Kevin wants to hear how the Clanlin and the Bricks O family hear about your jobs. What does your family think about all this streaming and video content stuff?
Go ahead, Brian. What does your family think?
Nobody understands it. So nobody gets it. Most of my family. So when I was growing up, I vividly remember one of my cousins not making fun of me, but like, you make videos, look at Brian, and try to tease me with it. And then as it's gone on and I've been able to do this more frequently and take it more seriously and really diversify, my brand and all that stuff, it's grown into something that I didn't think I would be able to do on my own. So when I explain it to my grandfather, it's mostly like, I just play video games and talk about things online. And they're like, but you can make money doing that? I'm like, yeah, you can make money doing pretty much anything online in that capacity. And like, oh, well, cool. My mom still doesn't really get it. Nobody really understands what it is except for my friends. They get it because they're my age, they're our age. But nobody of my family fully understands. Well, maybe like one or two people, but not to the extent that like you and I know it and understand how like ad revenue works and social media tags and what goes viral and blah, blah, all the stuff we talked about with Dave earlier. Nobody knows about it or cares to know about it because we're the nerds who live it. So,
right. And they don't really have a reason to. Like, if you aren't like creating that content yourself, then there just isn't as much incentive there.
My grandmother is always like, a business good? And I'm like, yeah, Susan, it's fine. All right, cool. That's all. They just care that, like, things are okay. Am I alive? Am I, is it good? Am I in financial turmoil? I'm like, not yet. So,
That's good. We're trying to keep you out of financial turmoil. That's cool.
It can happen any second. The more Lego sets I buy, those between August 1st with those Super Mario sets, Harry Potter, and I forget the third thing that's coming out. There's something else that got announced. But that's going to set me back hardcore. So I might need to take another loan out on the house I don't have yet. So we'll see.
To answer Kevin's question for me, so my immediate family, like my siblings and parents, they all pretty well understand. I'd say I have a very good understanding of what we, like John and I do. Just because we've talked with them about it a lot. They've gone to some Lego conventions. So, and obviously they, have seen as the channel's grown and everything. So they've had kind of like an insider's view of it. And so they all understand what we do. And my parents, who, by the way, it's their 30th anniversary today. So shout out to my parents there, have been super supportive, just really incredible. My mom still helps with a lot of like the paperwork and that sort of like taxes and that sort of stuff has always been like super helpful with me and John trying to figure all that out. So so my immediate family all like really supportive, especially like from my parents' perspective, as long as like when we were still going through like college and like as long as we did fine with that, they didn't have a problem with anything we were doing with YouTube and all of that stuff. So it all worked out fine. My more extended family, like my grandma, no clue. She tries to tell people, and it's great. I appreciate her efforts, but it just doesn't work well. So I've tried to explain to her several times what it is we do, but it just doesn't connect. A lot of my more extended family, though, if I've sat down and like explained it to them, they have a fairly decent idea of what it is. Like when I was in college, I would like talk with like the professors and stuff sometimes, like because I would like we were still traveling to some shows and stuff even when I was back in college. So I would like tell a professor, oh, I'm like traveling to London for a Lego convention, right? And would have to like try to explain to them like what it is I do and everything. And they can maybe pick up parts of it, but it's the combination of like the fact that Lego conventions are a thing, which they don't really understand, the fact that like YouTube is a thing, and then the fact that we combine those up and put those together, and it just kind of becomes too much for them.
I feel like that's what a lot of the adults measure like the success by, because like my when I talk to my grandfather, I'm like, oh, I'm going to Toronto for this thing that happened cobbled together 2 weeks ago. And he's like, oh, that's so good. Congratulations. It's those like things that happen that they like they're like, oh, he's going places and doing things. Maybe not going places in like life in the grand, but he's going to like Toronto or Chicago or Florida or the West Coast, whatever. So that is what I feel like cements it even more. Not that like I need that to validate to anyone what I'm doing and to what extent. It's what makes me happy, and not about money and about me going places and whatever, because I would still be in the same spot here if I were making $1 million a year. It's like, that's just what I'm doing,
Right.
So, but it's difficult to explain to the adults, because I still don't feel like I'm an adult, even though like we are, that, what this all is. Like, I feel like it, I look at taxes and I'm like, oh, no. So like, now I have an accountant that helps me and everything. But like before, I'm like, how do I so
the accountant John and I use, we've had him for several years now. He finally, I think, mostly understands what we do. We always have like whenever we meet with him about taxes every year, it's always like a little bit of time on taxes, but most of the time is explaining like YouTube, because he's actually, funny enough, he's still like he's a Lego fan himself, actually, which is pretty cool. So like him and his grown kids and stuff all build with Lego. So he understands the Lego part of it, like why people would be into that, but the YouTube stuff we've explained to him, and I think he's finally getting it. But it's always it makes our tax meetings fun because he thinks it's cool.
Yeah, because he's probably like, wait, so it's ad revenue, but what does this constitute as on a form? Is this royalty? I guess I don't. What do you call this? All right, and then it's all different by state. And like, so are you getting paid by YouTube? Well, kind of, but we're not employed, and so it's always
He's always so amazed that we still make money every year we come in, and the fact that we continue to make more money every year, and that it has
like, you guys are back. How?
Yeah,
crazy.
He's waiting for us to walk in one year and be like, well, it's all over. We have nothing to show.
I told you. I'm waiting for that day too. We'll see. Soon enough, it'll all crumble.
I hope it doesn't happen. But I thought it was interesting. You mentioned earlier about how like you had like there was like a kid or someone who like made fun of you for making videos or something. Which I never I can never remember that happening. So I started doing the podcast. I was 15. And it was mostly just people didn't understand. So like whether it was like people in my own age group or even older people, because of the combination of Lego and all of that stuff, they didn't really get what it was that we were doing. So I don't know. I don't remember ever having like a real negative experience with anyone like that. But it was just for a lot of years feeling like no one really understands what it is that I do. And then because of that, feeling like it was like difficult to talk to people about it. And so it took a number of years to really get to the point where I was comfortable with like just from the very beginning of meeting someone new, like telling them what it is that I did online.
So, explaining it to family is one thing. And I vividly remember relatively recent, like last year, I went into a sub shop and a woman asked me like, oh, what's your t-shirt? I'm like, oh, I make videos online. I do it full time and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, my son plays Fortnite something and he makes money doing that. And I just think it's the weirdest thing. Like how do you make money doing that? And I have to deal with his taxes. And like, I don't know anything about this. And she's like, yeah, I said, yeah, I do that too. That's my thing. That's my career. And she's like, okay, have a good day, and gives me my food. And I'm like, all right. Do you not believe me? Do you think it's weird? Okay. Like the way that people are finding career paths with this is so crazy. It's a different type of energy than, being a carpenter or an electrician, or it's just different. So, after I do this stream, I feel like, but it's a different type of energy that it takes to do this sort of thing and do it to a level of quality, which I'd like to think it's a quality stream, at least, us doing this. So it's very just different, and it's hard for people to understand. So when someone makes fun of you for it or like gives you a little flack for it, it's just, it's like bullying in real life. It's just something they don't understand, and they don't have the capacity to understand it.
Right. And that's what I always keep in mind still today, is like all this stuff is so new that you can't like get upset at someone when they don't understand what it is you do, because I mean the job literally didn't exist like 10 years ago. Like no one in the history of humanity had ever done this as a job before. So when someone can't really wrap their head around it, it's hard to get upset at someone or something. You just have to like try your best to explain it, and some people will get it, some people won't, and you just have to kind of move on then.
Which is why it's so interesting hearing Dave talk about, you know, how are the laws going to change pertaining to everything. And, you know, when you file your taxes at the end of the year, there's no content creator, you know, tick marker there. It's like, you know, you can earn residuals off of movies. It's not a career that's like established as a thing. And it's all very dicey and gray, and, you know, it'll work itself out over time. In our private chat here, John is like, let's do another 20 minutes on taxes and see if we can hit the goal of 0 viewers. So if you want to dip out of here anytime soon, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep talking about you know, how much to put in the 401k, what, you know, what you with Fidelity, you with Bank of America, what are we talking here?
We're going to go through a long list of items. I'm going to name them off, and Brian will say if we can write them off or not.
Yes. Can I write off the Chipotle gift card because it helps with the business on the streams?
Oh, you know it.
Like, that's always the most crazy part to me is like, you know, you can get really lenient with it, but I'm like, I don't want to be like investigated by anyone. Like, hey, you wrote off this Splatoon like water gun here from Toys R Us. Why? Why did you do like, you know? So just save the receipts and figure it out later. That's what I say.
Well, you can get super creative with writing things off on your taxes, you know, and make any type of content that relates to it in any way. And hey, there you go.
Right. I mean, could I write off all the Dunkin' Donuts because I talk about it in my videos? You know, so
I go for it.
Might as well, right?
I'm not an accountant, and you should not take my legal advice.
Right. Exactly. I do not provide legal advice as well. I know nothing about what I'm doing. Trust me, I don't. So nothing like a good, relaxing Lego stream as we talk about taxes. Beautiful.
That's Thank right. Hey kids, you know, this is the reality of the world. You know, if you want to build something like Beyond the Brick, as unfortunate as it is, you might not like it, but you've got to figure these things out, because that's the only way to keep something running in the long term and continue to build it. So if you enjoy content from channels like Beyond the Brick, like Bricks O'Brien, well, you've got to figure those things out, or else things are going to tank real quick when the IRS comes knocking on your door.
Yep. And then they're like, hey, do you have our money? And I'm like, yeah, but take it. It's so weird how taxes work in the U.S., where the government's like, hey, you owe us money. We know how much you owe us, but you got to tell us. It's like, but just take it, right? Like, no. You have to tell us. And if you mess up, we're taking it out on you. All right.
And it turns out when the IRS shows up, you can't hand them a Chipotle gift card and they call it even.
You cannot hand them Fortnite V-Bucks or a Chipotle gift card or Monopoly money. It has to be a nice check in the mail. So
your crops in Animal Crossing don't count as currency.
Nope. No turnip, no bells, nothing. Nope. I can't wait for the new H&R Block Tax Accountant Cubicle Lego set. That's going to be the next sponsorship, is H&R Block here. It's going to be great.
Funny enough, my sister is an accountant, so she would appreciate that. She likes to bring me with her to the like events that her accounting company puts on, because they're all just accountants. So when she brings in like a Lego YouTuber, it's like an interesting person that they want to talk to.
Right.
So that they all enjoy it.
How would we deal with you if you walked into our place? Like what?
And then they like to give me lots of tax advice as well. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So Kevin, we'll get on the tax get those on Lego ideas. I think the tax accountant ideas sets are a real underserved genre. You know, there's a lot of accountants with a lot of money that are also Lego fans out there.
Totally. And you know, as cold as they may be when it comes to dealing with money and the IRS and all that, they need a hobby too. So, you know. I want to know what an accountant convention looks like. Probably very gray. Very gray. You know, people are very tired all the time. Something like that.
Yeah. I don't know if accountant conventions are a thing. That I don't know. I'll have to ask my sister. They're just like events where like accounting. There's like job fairs. That's the closest thing where like accounting firms just all set up and try to hire new accountants to join them.
Yeah, something like that. And Crafting Minds like, nah, accountants get down. They get down to party. Nice, nice.
They just have that boring outer image so that people will leave them alone.
Right. Exactly. But when I see my accountant, I'm like, all right, the guy who doesn't find my jokes funny or warms up to me at all is the guy I want to work with. Just let's get the job done. Let's get in and get out.
You know he's serious. You want him to take it seriously because
I don't want him entertaining any of my stupidity. Let's.
You don't want like one of your random moderators in your chat or something to be doing your taxes.
And that's a bad decision there. So we've discussed enough about taxes. I don't know when you want to end this shindig off, but
Stuart is ready for Spreadsheet Con. Oh,
there we go.
My mom would host Spreadsheet Con every day of the week. That would be her dream come true if she could host Spreadsheet Con. So Stuart, I will have to ask her to look into that because nothing. That's what I was saying earlier about the fact that she helps us with so much of the behind the scenes paperwork. Nothing makes her happier than a well laid out and organized spreadsheet that she can consult on a regular basis.
There you go. I gotta be that same way.
See, and I'm so not that way, which is why it's so good that she and John can handle that side of it.
I'm not that way either, so I'm like, who do I even talk to? We'll talk after the stream. We'll talk.
There you go. We probably should be wrapping things up. We haven't hit 0 viewers yet, which is a miracle. So somehow people have stuck around. I like these chats, though. You know, it's nice to diverge into food and these other areas. It doesn't have to be all about Lego because, as people always like to point out, it's beyond the brick. So we can do literally anything we want.
Totally. As long as the audience is down with it, I'm down with it. That's all I do is I literally play a game and I'm just talking about what my day was like and, you know, whatever. So
that's right. We'll post another like 20-foot Star Wars build to actually make money for the channel. These streams don't have to worry. Don't have to worry about it.
Nice.
So thank you, everyone who has stuck with us, though. We appreciate it. It's always great to have everybody in the chat. We always enjoy chatting with people. Thanks to Dave Pickett, who joined us earlier. Super awesome conversation. Dave's channel, he's not super active on there, but he has a ton of old content on Brick 101. So if you haven't checked that out, he's got a bunch of really good videos that you should go watch over there. And then you can see more from him on the Brick World virtual shows coming up. So if you enjoyed his content, then definitely check out the Brick World virtual shows where he'll be doing more of that in the future. But thank you, Brian, for joining me once again. It's been great, folks. We will be back next week with another great stream for you. I'm sure another fun, entertaining guest. That's our goal, at least. You know, we do our best around here. We'll see.
And a lot less tax talk.
You never know, though. Maybe. But yeah, thank you, everyone. We will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.